Good evening and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. Do we know where that echo is coming from? That'll be fun. Happy New Year. One moment, please. We have new technology, so that's part of it. All right, let's try that. Nope, still got the echo.
Everything's muted.
Good evening. Welcome to tonight's echoey council meeting. She's got an extra screen for the Zoom, which is cool, but maybe it's picking up the audio. Thank you for your patience. Good evening. Good evening. I think there's a delay, and it's coming from that device. Something needs to be turned down. Does that help you? Well, I can't really conduct the meeting with this echo. Sure. Good evening and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. Thank you. Information on how to watch, attend, and participate, as well as agendas, minutes, and recordings can be found on Broomfield's website at broomfield.org/council meetings. Public comment is welcome in person or through our call-in service. Instructions for calling in are available on the council meetings webpage. Public comment will be limited to 90 minutes total per item. The first 1 through 15 participants in the queue have 3 minutes. The next 16 through 25 have 2, and if time remains, the next 26 plus participants have 1 minute to speak. I just backed that up. For our hard of hearing residents present, we have wireless headsets available in the back of the council chambers through our AV team. The City Council regular meeting is called to order. Councilmember Ward is attending tonight's meeting remotely. There are 10 council members in attendance and a quorum of the council is present. We begin this meeting by acknowledging that we gather on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, Ute, and other Native peoples. Indigenous peoples have cared for this land for generations and continue to maintain deep cultural and spiritual ties to it. As the City and County of Broomfield, we recognize the responsibility to honor this legacy and the enduring presence of Native communities. May this acknowledgement inspire action that fosters greater understanding, truth, and respect for Indigenous peoples. Thank you. Will everyone please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In an effort to keep order for tonight's meeting, I ask council members to limit their comments to 5 minutes. If council members are given an opportunity to speak for a second time on an item, they should limit their comments to 2 minutes. We'll plan on a 10-minute break at approximately 8 p.m. We'll begin with council's review and approval of this evening's agenda. Council may add or remove items from the consent agenda, or council may revise the order of business for the meeting. Does any member of the council have any comments or questions regarding this evening's agenda? Are there any objections to this agenda being approved? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. There are no items under petitions and communications this evening. Before asking for council member reports tonight, I want to share an update that last night, Councilmember Nguyen was selected to fill the State House District 33 vacancy. Congratulations, Councilmember Nguyen. He'll be sworn into this new position tomorrow as the legislative session begins. With this new appointment, Councilmember Nguyen will resign from his councilmember seat effective after this meeting. While we will miss him on the council, we wish him all the best in this next chapter and look forward to continuing to work with him in his new role. Councilmember Nguyen, congratulations again. Before I ask for other council comments, would you like to share anything, recognizing this is your last meeting with council?
I do.
Go ahead.
Being on Broomfield City Council has been an honor of a lifetime. And I know there's a lot of council members who are new here, and it is a bit of a shame that I'm not able to join you and be part of this journey. But to the council members I've served for the last 2 years, the city staff, to the amazing work with this team, it's incredible. And I'm really honored and privileged to be here. And last night I said that I would represent Broomfield and Northglenn and Thorne with dignity and respect, and I do mean that. And so I know this is not what I expected, and I know this is a bit of a short, abrupt departure, but I will be around and I will be available, and I plan to serve with integrity and respect and honor. So thank you so much, Mayor, and Mayor Pro Tem and council and staff.
Thank you, Kenny. We'll move on to council member reports. Does any member of the council have any reports or updates this evening, or would like to speak regarding Councilmember Nguyen's new appointment? First, we have Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted just to share a statement that I sent to my colleagues last week for public notification. Last week, Broomfield Voice published a new concept plan from UC Health to build a medical center, medical office buildings, and additional potential residential, retail, and commercial developments on what was known as IKEA property along I-25 and Highway 7. This follows a concept published last month also for a new Advent hospital on land due south of the IKEA property in Broomfield. I will be recusing myself from all discussions and future votes regarding the UC Health and Advent Health applications. This decision is based on my employment as Director of Communication Strategy with UC Health and in consultation with the sitting county attorney, as well as considering the Broomfield Ethics Code. Consequently, I'll be leaving the room during concept reviews in about a month and when these items are brought before council for a vote. In addition, since UC Health has an existing agreement with the applicant related to the Replat J application, which is on a future agenda, I have decided to also recuse myself from that discussion and vote, as well as a related filing 7 item. While I believe I can maintain impartiality and consider these applications on its merits based on the criteria in the code, I want to eliminate any potential appearance of impropriety that might in any way impugn the integrity of Broomfield's proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Delgadillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to say farewell to Councilmember Nguyen. I will say that, throughout this time especially, I think it shows a lot about someone's character when you are sometimes, in conflict with each other. And I will say that with Councilmember Nguyen, we have been rivals, we have not been enemies. And I think that really speaks to his character. And I greatly appreciate just who you are as a person, the fact that you are, I know at your core you're a very kind person who cares deeply about this community, and I have no doubts that you will represent this district with integrity, as you say, and with kindness and with a lot of heart. So I appreciate you. I will miss you, and I'll see you around. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Lim.
I had a few different items. First of all, I did want to thank you for your service to council, the city, and especially to Ward 1, Kenny, Councilmember Wen. I look forward to working with you, certainly, as you go forward in the state legislature. So thank you. I had the honor to accompany our new Sister Cities delegation from Malitpur on tours of the water treatment plant, Broomfield Community Center, and our HHS group. I really want to shout out to staff who organized all of that and who did wonderful tours. They were great tour guides, and our Sister Cities delegation seemed to really appreciate that. And I also wanted to shout out to the Nepali community who brought a lot of people to the reception last night, and we had a great turnout and a great celebration for the signing ceremony. Also, we have our boards and commissions open house this week, Thursday, January 15th from 5 to 7 here. So if you are contemplating applying for boards and commissions but aren't quite sure what fits your interest, we'd love to have you come and find out some further information and then have you apply. One other item, the Broomfield Teen Council and Youth for Youth are going to host the second annual Teen Leadership Conference on January 24th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Broomfield High School. For teenagers, this event is free and lunch is provided. You can find out further information by checking the Teen Council Facebook page. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Twists.
I also would like to express my thanks to Councilmember Wen for representing Ward 1 and for doing a great job for Broomfield. And I look forward to working with you in a different way. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council member reports? Oh, Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to start off by saying I, along with a few of our council colleagues, including Mayor Pro Tem Lim, Councilmember Henkel, and Councilmember Twiss, along with Mayor Castriota, attended the Commuting Solutions, I think 17th annual now, legislative breakfast on last Wednesday on the 8th, Thursday the 8th. I have my dates mixed up. I had to leave a little early, but I know Mayor Castriota gave a presentation along with one of the board of directors for Community Solutions. They also heard from Sal Pace, who is now the new general manager, I guess is his current title, for the Front Range Passenger Rail District, and they provided an update related to kind of what their plans are for this upcoming year and the potential for a ballot measure depending on kind of what polling looks like in May and July. And then State Representative Basenecker, and I forget which state senator attended, but they provided an update for the Community Solutions breakfast about current upcoming legislative bills for this current session. So I just wanted to let council know that I, along with my colleagues, attended that, and thank Mayor Castriota for her presentation. And then finally, I do want to give my sincere appreciation and gratitude to Councilmember Wynn for his service on the Broomfield City Council over these past couple of years. I've enjoyed working with you very much, and I look forward to working with you in a different capacity as you serve out the remainder of now State Senator Lindstadt's term. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Henkel.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Councilmember Nguyen for serving for the past 2 years, and also Stan Jezierski for running as well. Appreciate all the service of people who want to run for office. It doesn't, it's not for the weak, that's for sure. So want to make sure that thank you for your service and thanks for running. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, moving on. We'll now proceed with general public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on matters other than the items already listed elsewhere on this evening's agenda. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Please make your way to the podium, state your name and neighborhood for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Hi, council, staff. I just have a quick question. You may post this later, but how will you be replacing Mr. Nguyen? Is that a process that, I'm assuming we have a process to do that?
Oh, yes, we have a process, Mr. Carruthers, and City and County Attorney Nancy Rogers will be talking about that when her report section comes.
Cool.
So we'll be letting people know the details and the timeline.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Trina Griego, and I'm the West Metro Regional Director for the Office of Senator John Hickenlooper. Just really happy to be here to introduce myself and share a little bit of an update about what the Senator will be up to for this year. So our Office of Outreach has 9 regional directors around the state, serving in various communities. My specific area is Broomfield, Jefferson County, Gilpin, Clear Creek, and Summit. So happy to address any issues in that area. We do expect committee assignments to be solidified for the Senator in the coming days, but we don't expect any changes to his committee assignments. So he will be Energy and Natural Resources, Commerce, Science and Transportation, Small Business and Entrepreneurship, Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. With these committee assignments, some of the Senator's priorities this year include reducing costs for communities and safeguarding services, protecting public funding and defending science, defending essential health care, safeguarding the federal workforce and workforce development, and preventing wildfires and protecting public lands. I do want to mention on the subject of CDS funds. So with the continuing resolution that was passed to fund the government through January 30th, we are still waiting on some appropriations package bills from this last year. So we're tracking those, we are seeing movement, and we're getting in touch with applicants should they need anything. And I do want to let you know that we will be starting the CDS funding appropriations process here soon, so I'll be providing stakeholders with those updates. Lastly, I do want to mention our Citizens Advocates Group. Any constituent in the state can contact our office if they need help with federal agencies. I can contact you myself, or we also have that available on our website. If there's anything I missed, I'm always happy to chat with stakeholders in all of Broomfield regarding federal matters, questions, comments, and concerns. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Did our clock not work?
We have to wait for him.
Okay.
I won't take 3 minutes, I promise. Hello, council members, mayor, and staff. First of all, I want to thank you for what you do for Broomfield and making this such a great place to live. I've lived in Broomfield for 46 years, and it's ever increasingly getting better, so thank you very much. I haven't heard much lately about the Broomfield Town Square. I'm wondering if you might be able to put some updates on the community update. That'd be real helpful. I hope I don't die of old age before that is built. And lastly, I'd like to congratulate Councilmember Nguyen. I watched the presentation last night. You knocked it out of the park, so congratulations, and looking forward to working with you as our rep in HD 33. Good night.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello, Mayor and City Council members and City Managers. Hello, I'm Jessica Jones. I'm with the Broomfield Early Childhood Council. We live at 6 Garden Center, co-locate with Fish Family Resource Center. We wanted to welcome our new council members here tonight. So hello and congratulations, Councilmember Nguyen. BECC, I'm also here with my friend and team member, Mercy Manresa, who will speak later. That's really intimidating, but I'll keep going. So BECC, just for everybody, is a 10-year-old nonprofit born and raised here in Broomfield. We work with Broomfield, we serve Broomfield families, we serve Broomfield children, and we work with all 34 licensed childcare sites in Broomfield. That's preschools, childcare centers, school district preschools, and family childcare homes. So we work to strengthen the workforce of the early education to have quality learning environments for children. And we also know that kids learn outside. They don't learn just in a vacuum, but they learn outside of childcare. So we also support in strengthening families and building skills in parents and caregivers to foster strong social emotional development and relationships with their children through classes, resources, and advocacy. So tonight I wanted to present BECC and Mercy to our new council members, but also to share some of our activities with you and the county. So we are hosting what we're calling a tour week. I have some flyers and a QR code that accesses our website, so you have all the schedules. I'll put it in the back, and it's also on our website at broomfieldecc.org. This tour week is an opportunity for parents and caregivers to drop in to participating childcare sites to learn about the facility, meet the staff, and understand the quality measures that these sites are taking in order to give children the best environment to learn and thrive. So there's different blocks of time. This is the last week of January. Again, all the information is there on our website. And most of these sites are also participating in Universal Preschool, so parents can sign up their kids for preschool starting in the fall of 2026. Quick and easy, take that off the box. Let me get through this part. Okay, so I know there's a lot of opportunities for you all to follow and support state legislation and implement it here locally. So I think this is where the leaders, you as leaders, do your best work and where local leadership matters. So early childhood policy is often shaped at the state level, but cities play a powerful role in advocating for smart investments, supporting partnerships, and ensuring family voices are heard. Oh, hurry.
Don't worry,
So,
Ms.
okay.
Jones.
Thank
can
you.
finish. Yes, don't worry. You're one of our
Jeez.
partners.
Calm down. So I know that supporting early childhood, at least I believe strongly that supporting early childhood is not a partisan issue, it's a community issue. So it's about ensuring that every child has the opportunity to thrive, every family feels supported, and Broomfield continues to be a place where people want to live, work, and raise a family. So as legislation is presented, and it's presented to you as city council members, I'll just ask that you support legislation that strengthen early childhood systems, invest in the early childhood workforce, and expand access to quality care and affordable care for early learning and for children and families. And us at Broomfield Early Childhood Council will be your advocate and support you in understanding any legislation or the impacts that it may have onto our Broomfield families. So thank you.
Thank
Have
you
a good
very much.
Congratulations.
Hi, I'm Mercy Manresa. I am with the Broomfield Early Childhood Council. I also live in the Brandywine neighborhood and have lived in Broomfield since 2003 and have been raising my 3 boys, the oldest of whom is moving to California on Friday, so we have a big transition ahead of us. But one of the things that we do offer to the community, like Jessica mentioned, is parenting support for families. We have been offering the Incredible Years program for the last 5 years. We started virtually in 2020, and we have our upcoming classes starting January 28th. They are free parenting classes for parents of preschoolers. We offer them in Spanish and in English. One of our newer partners here, Blossoming Trees, offers it in Arabic and Aurora, and we'll be offering it in English in Broomfield here to both the Arabic and Muslim community, so Arabic regardless of faith and Muslim regardless of where they're from. So that will be new in Broomfield as well. So I'll put some flyers at the back. And I just want to say thank you so much for all of your ongoing support for our council and the work that we do. We have strong partnerships in the city and county of Broomfield with the Broomfield Detention Center, the Broomfield Library, Health and Human Services, any number of agencies that we work with here in Broomfield, both part of the city and not part of the city, but doing good work here. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of your support, and we appreciate you all. We look forward to having you guys join us at the Big Broomfield Playdate, so please save the date for Saturday, July 11th for our free community event for families of young children. And Councilmember Nguyen, I just want to say congratulations. Thank you so much for serving Broomfield, and we look forward to continuing to support you. And as your work and the pressure of that continues to grow, please always remember to find joy in things that you love, like rowing with Pasco. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in person who would like to be heard? All right, we actually have a caller. We have someone on the phone, Zoom, that wants to speak. So I don't know who it is. We'll find out.
All right, caller number ending in 298. Please press *6 when prompted to unmute and state your name and neighborhood for the record.
Hi, my name is Kathy Escobar, and I'm sorry that I can't be there tonight. I'm the co-founder of The Refuge, which is a hub for healing community, social action, and creative collaboration. We've been serving in Broomfield for 2 decades this year, and just really grateful for all that the City Council does in Broomfield. I do want to invite everyone there to our 20th year birthday on April 26th. It's going to be really fun. But a core program of The Refuge is the Refuge Cafe, and that is a hopeful hub for people experiencing homelessness without social safety nets. And can't attend tonight because I just learned today about the proposed ordinance change related to RVs and oversized vehicles. And I just wanted to pop on and just say to make sure that you at least had the opportunity to consider the reality of this change for people who their RV is their current residence. I recognize that Broomfield already has an ordinance that no one can live in their RV in Broomfield, but the reality is that people have no other option, and these spaces are keeping them safe and alive. I also honor the reality for business and property owners on abandoned RVs and oversized vehicles and the impact on their business, and firmly believe that that should be addressed. However, it's crucial as a community that we also really consider the voices of other Broomfield residents who, because of the high cost of housing here, have found a way to stay safe in their RVs. And while it's easy to say safe parking program is an option, the truth is that this is a crucial but very underfunded and limited program with only a small handful of spots and a current waiting list. So in these situations, which is really the bigger picture of why I'm messaging today, is just where decisions are being made that affect Broomfield residents who don't write letters or come to speak at City Council or talk to their reps directly. Like, that's just not their natural thing. They're trying to make it. One of my questions is, who else's input did you receive? And what other options have been considered? And did you hear from people who have lived experience in their RV, not only people that are living there by choice? And towing fees, just a reminder, for some people will mean that they will lose their vehicle forever. Even, just getting it in there, getting it out will be really impossible for some people. Again, I'm not talking about abandoned vehicles. This decision like this also has a huge impact on visiting family members in Broomfield and their ability to have people that live there and are coming to visit or traveling. So I would just personally love to see more creative solutions considered that allow for the impacts of the most vulnerable in our community. You all know we'll always advocate in this space. And then just to please keep these Broomfield neighbors in front of you all as you make these really important decisions. We're really grateful for your leadership and just always want to come alongside in any way and provide ways for people to hear from people who are directly impacted by some of these decisions. Thanks so much for your time, and congratulations, Councilman Lim. We're really excited for you.
All right, thank you very much. And that item that was being referred to is later on in the meeting. It's item 7C. So if you want to comment, that would be the appropriate time to make comments on this ordinance. But I just let it go because she was there. So now, any other public comment? All right. Well, we'll now continue with the reports section of the agenda. The first item under reports this evening is the 2026 Colorado General Assembly Legislative Session Preview. Staff will now provide the presentation for this item.
Thank you, Mayor. And walking down to the podium right now is Danae Brouillard. She's the Director of Strategic Initiatives and Governmental Affairs. Our lobbyists are also in the House this evening. Ms. Brouillard.
Thank you, Manager Hoffman. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council members. Danae Brouillard, Director of Strategic Initiatives and Governmental Affairs. And I was sitting in the audience thinking, it's been a long time since we've seen you, so Happy New Year. It was so last year, I guess, since the last time we saw you. So good to see everybody. Next slide, please. All right, we have prepared a legislative presentation this evening with two parts. First, I will briefly go over the legislative process as directed by council for the legislative session that starts tomorrow. And then I will pass it over to our contract lobbyists, which is Bowditch Castle Public Affairs, or BCPA. You may hear us refer to that throughout the presentation. And they're going to provide the majority of the presentation, talking about what providing some insight of what we expect to see in the 120-day session that starts tomorrow. Next slide. All right, for the 2026 legislative session, we will use the process and structure that was proven effective in the 2025 session and as previously directed by council. Each legislative session, on average, 550 to 650 bills are introduced. The lifespan of the bill varies, with some what they call dead on arrival, meaning they don't even make it out of committee, and others that die on the clock, meaning they weren't able to go through the legislative process. And then there are several stages in between. Due to the complexity of this process and the sheer amount of bills that are introduced, not only has a structure that has been built allow Broomfield to be strategic, nimble, and effective in our resource allocation, we have had favorable outcomes benefiting the city and county of Broomfield. Before going into the process, it is really important to note that Broomfield has a very unique position, one that is different from any other city, county, or city and county. First off, Broomfield has home rule authority, and we are also a city and county with unique city and county authority. Secondly, the positions that are typically elected in other counties are part of our leadership team at Broomfield. These positions are the treasurer, assessor, clerk and recorder, and the sheriff, which is our chief of police. It has only been in the past few years where I really understood the benefit of this. So for example, all other counties, these positions operate separately and do not report to a single point of contact. Furthermore, they do not have to be in alignment with positions. Having these as part of the Broomfield staff and the same team removes that barrier. Not only creating alignment as we follow the same process, it also allows us to work quickly when feedback is needed in these subject areas. And then finally, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, or TABOR, which was first approved by Colorado voters in 1992, generally limits the amount of revenue that governments in the state can retain and spend. Over the years, Broomfield voters, via multiple ballot questions, have permitted the city and county of Broomfield to retain the excess revenue above TABOR limits, which is often called debrucing, and that is different than many of the other cities and counties across the state. These items provide a very unique and a very favorable position for Broomfield, as it limits the number of bills that impact the city and county of Broomfield. Next slide. Understanding Broomfield's unique status is important, as not only does it provide the lens in which we review the legislation to determine if it impacts Broomfield as an entity, it also reduces the number of bills that impacts us right out of the gate. On average, about 90% of the bills introduced do not impact Broomfield directly. As bills are introduced, staff in partnership with our contract lobbyist, who you'll meet here in a moment, and subject matter experts across the organization review legislation to determine if the bill impacts CCOB directly. If it does impact us directly, then we do a deeper dive to determine the magnitude of that impact. Pending the magnitude of impact, staff will brief council and request formal positions as needed. We acknowledge that while the majority of bills introduced will not impact CCOB directly, there will be several bills that may be important to you as a council member and to your constituents. In this scenario, council members can advocate on a piece of legislation. Just please be sure to note that you're advocating as an individual council member and that your position is not reflective of the city and county of Broomfield as a body. Next slide. Following the election, council made self-appointments to council's various membership organizations, and over the past month, many of you have started to already receive information, attend orientation, and maybe even some meetings. For the membership organizations that primary roles are in the legislative space, so for example, Colorado Counties Acting Together, or CCAT, Colorado Municipal League, CML, or Colorado Communities for Climate Action, CC4CA, we will continue to receive those emails and calendar invites, but staff only attends based on agendas, and that's again doing that high-level precursory review, understanding if they impact us, and then attending as needed to advocate for Broomfield and support. As you will see when you attend the meetings, about 10% of the bills in those agendas will also impact Broomfield. If there is that agenda item, as I mentioned, we'll make sure that staff is listening on the call, but otherwise they are not staffed. I do want to mention one exception for 2026 that is different than last year, and that is Colorado Counties, Inc., or CCI, that you'll hear. When council did those appointments at the end of the year, there was a decision that staff will attend those, but limited to the human services space only, and that's based off the federal and state changes that we know are coming down the pike. Next slide. And then just with some new council members, we wanted to go over what you can expect from staff and communication throughout this session. So there's a lot of routine communication that we will have set up. I met with our contract lobbyists today, actually. In your CMO Weekly that you get every Friday, you will receive an update from us and then an update from our contract lobbyists on alternating weeks. So every Friday you can expect to get a routine communication on what's happening at the Capitol. And then we do one-off communications. We recognize the legislative process doesn't necessarily follow our timelines or our schedules, and in that scenario we are able to activate and move quickly and get the feedback that we need in a quick enough time. We will give legislative updates at council meetings, so we have those scheduled for every single month throughout the session, so you can count on these brief updates and an opportunity to ask questions. We'll highlight those bills that I mentioned that do impact Broomfield with a magnitude and those requests for positions at that time. And then last but not least, I put a visual on the screen, but you can see the City and County of Broomfield bill tracker. So every year we create a public bill tracker for you and for the City and County residents to be able to see what we are monitoring and tracking with staff comments, where our membership organizations are, et cetera. So it's a really great way of, I don't want to say in real time, it updates in real time from the legislature, but we do our best as staff to keep it updated as timely as possible. So those are some of the things you can expect to ensure that you're updated throughout the 120-day session. And next slide, please. Finally, I just want to mention that Council's legislative process is included in Council's rules in Chapter 9. It is one of, we had changes, so I want to say one of two, but now it might be the only one that requires 2/3 of a vote. With the charter changes. So it does take 2/3 majority of council to take a formal position on a bill, so it's more than a typical majority vote. And I just summarized up here what a bill, when you give us a position, whether it's oppose or support or amend, what direction that gives us, and that's to activate down at the Capitol, to use our resources to advocate for a favorable outcome for Broomfield. I do want to mention, if there is a piece of legislation that we don't bring forward to council that you feel does impact Broomfield as an entity and want to take a position on, there is a process for that, so council members can do that as well. You submit a request to the city and county manager by noon the Wednesday prior to the meeting, and then we'll ensure to put it on the agenda so that the public's aware and bring it forward for that review and vote. Next slide. All right, with that, I'm going to pass it over to our contract lobbyist for the 2026 session.
Thank you, Ms. Brouillard.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Nice to be here. My name is Jennifer Castle, and this is Ed Bowditch, and it is a pleasure to represent the City and County of Broomfield down at the Capitol, so thank you for that opportunity. Here we go again. So the session will start tomorrow. A lot of activities and action will take place, not necessarily on legislation, but it's kind of like the first day of school. Everybody's back together. Go ahead and move to the next slide, please. So I'll give a little bit of an overview of what we're expecting for 2026 that kind of explains legislation that we will see introduced down at the Capitol, as well as maybe some behavior that we see down at the Capitol as well, too. So we still have Democratic majorities. The Democrats are one vote shy in both chambers of holding a supermajority. We have 6 new members of the legislature when we start tomorrow. One of the big themes that is going to be playing out this session is the 2026 election. It is going to be a big election in Colorado. We have every statewide race that is up for election, as well as a U.S. Senate race. Of course, all the congressional districts, one very highly contested in Adams and Weld County, CD8. We have all of the state House of Representatives, and about a half of the state Senate is going to be up too, so a lot. Plus, we have a lot of ballot measures. Plenty of ballot measures are already being proposed for the ballot. Measures on property tax, income tax, social issues, those kind of things. It is also going to be Governor Polis's last year in office. So he is already planning on some big policy proposals that he is going to put forth. So we'll see the outcome of that. There is also some conflict in the Democratic Party right now. In years past, that's been on the Republican side, and now we have a little bit more on the Democratic side. So there's going to be a little bit of a battle between the progressives and the moderates this session. So we'll see how that plays out. And also if that changes certain political behavior, certain political grandstanding down at the Capitol. We do have new Republican leadership in both the House and the Senate, so I imagine we might see some new Republican caucus priorities for the 26th legislature as well. Next slide. Hand it over to Ed to talk the budget.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Danae. Good evening, everybody. The budget will be a major area of focus this year, as we like to say. There still ain't no money. A year ago, the legislature had to cut a lot of state programs, find every dollar they could to transfer into the general fund, and now we're back into the same situation. Last year, they did cuts such as state funding for senior services, after-school tutoring programs for kids, and a number of other things. This year, they are right back where they started with fewer options, so it will be tough. Governor Polis has recommended a number of reductions to Medicaid, and of course, the people relying on those services have shown up at the Capitol in force. Another issue that is going on is Tabor. As Danae explained a few minutes ago, the state is still under its Tabor revenue limit. That means that in most years, the state exceeds its revenue limit and has to give money back to the taxpayers. This year, however, as a result of the federal tax changes in H.R. 1, passed in July, the state will be under its Tabor revenue limit. One of the impacts of that is that it means there is, at this point, no certainty that the state's senior homestead property tax exemption will be funded in 26-27, because in the last few years that has been funded as part of the Tabor refund. So the legislature will be working on that. Because the state's revenues have been kind of put into flux as a result of the federal tax changes, there will be more of a focus on tax policy. During the August special session, there were 5 bills that passed eliminating certain tax credits, trying to get the state more revenue. There will be a continued focus on that when the session starts tomorrow. I'll jump to the last thing, and then I'll turn it back to Jennifer. One of the items that is going to cause a lot of discussion is the potential for Medicaid administrative changes. The federal H.R. 1 requires states to go below certain what are called error rates in processing Medicaid applications, as well as some other human services applications. If states exceed those error rates, states and their local partners will be responsible for more of the cost of maintaining Medicaid. And those penalties are what is scaring everybody at the Capitol. As a result of these changes, the state has proposed a change. This is the State Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing and the State Department of Human Services. But basically, Governor Polis's office has recommended that the state end its county-based Medicaid administration and move to a regional model where there would be 11 regions with one hub county and other counties within that region. The city and county of Broomfield would be with Boulder County under the hub county of Adams County. That is the initial proposal from the State Department of Human Services and HCPF. Lots can happen, as you can imagine, when you draw lines and put different counties together. These are subject to change. The hub county would receive a performance contract from the state. The hub county would work with the counties in its region to try and lower the error rates. There are a lot of questions about whether the state's technology is sufficient to make all this work. This would go live July 1, 2027, 17 and a half months from now. There's a lot left to be done and to be figured out on this. Colorado is one of the few states that has a county-based Medicaid administration services. Most states have an either state-based or a regional-based. But that will result in a lot of functions. There's also another proposal that would consolidate other Medicaid functions. Scanning, common phone bank, a statewide phone bank, those are all done at the county level. They would be combined, and the state would contract with one county to do all of those things. Again, trying to reduce the error rates. I'll turn it back to Jennifer for a couple of other issues.
Okay, Thank you, Ed. Also, as it relates to the budget, there is discussion of Pinnacle conversion. The Governor Polis did balance his budget based on Pinnacle converting, having a part of Pinnacle spin off so that Pinnacle could offer workers' compensation insurance in other states, also maybe offer other lines of insurance in Colorado as well too. And let me back up, I apologize if you don't know. Pinnacle is the insurer of last resort for workers' compensation coverage in the state. For many years, Pinnacle has tried to privatize in different ways. It has failed for different reasons. This year and last year, the governor and Pinnacle Para are really pushing this proposal. As of right now, there's a lot of questions. Its future is uncertain. But as I mentioned before, the budget is balanced based on the state receiving $400 million from that spinoff, and then $300 million going to Para for its unfunded liability for leaving Para. And then yesterday, just to add to that complexity, it was announced that there could be a ballot measure to privatize Pinnacle. So that also comes into play as well too. So we're not quite sure what's going to happen with Pinnacle. As Ed mentioned, there is no Tabor refund this year. There is a lot of talk that the Pinnacle conversion needs to happen. Otherwise, there will not be enough money to fund certain things that the Tabor refund might fund, including the senior homestead exemption and some other programs that will likely have to be cut. So that is going to be a contentious conversation down at the Capitol. In addition to budget being a dominant focus for the 2026 session, we do expect to see a lot of land use and housing issues as well too. And this is a continued theme that we've seen over the past couple of years in an effort to build more housing, to try to make housing more attainable in the state. We do know there's going to be a few proposals that will come. One to create, it will be voluntary to create housing and transit zones as an incentive for certain communities. And then there could be a few other bills that will come that will usurp local control, like allowing schools, institutions of higher education to build housing on their land by bypassing local requirements. Same thing to allow property owners to split their lots. So we will track a lot of those issues very closely. And in addition to these kind of hot topics, as Danae mentioned, 550 to 650, 700 bills. We're going to see a lot of different topics come at the Capitol. Next slide. Just a couple of big questions that the legislature is going to have to address this session and kind of leading into the future. Any ongoing federal government impacts? We did already see the impacts of H.R. 1. Will there be more? Will there be more funds that could be frozen from the federal government? So the legislature will have to deal with that if that comes. There will be big policy proposals. Ed mentioned the Medicaid proposal. There's going to be another big proposal to potentially shift the Department of Higher Education and certain programs within the Department of Labor and Employment, specifically workforce development programs. So I imagine we're going to see big policy proposals from both the governor and some legislators as they're leaving office. The fiscal policy for the state, this is the second year in a row we've had a very large deficit. I'm not sure we see too much good news on the horizon as it relates to Colorado's budget. So there's going to have to be some tough conversations with how to move forward. And then culture at the Capitol. As I mentioned, we've got 6 new members coming into the Capitol. Some of those members and that's because some members have resigned their seats. A few of them have claimed that the culture at the Capitol is toxic, and so they don't want to be down at the Capitol anymore. So that, of course, potentially could be an issue for legislators, for future legislatures, for how the legislature functions as a whole. So Danae did mention that you will get communications from us. You should have already received one, our legislative preview that went out last week. We will be sending those bi-weekly. So hopefully you find those informative. We look forward to working with you all, Senator Lindstedt, Councilmember Nguyen, and everyone else. So thank you very much. We're happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that snapshot. Well, first we'll go to public comment. If anyone would like to be heard on these items, please make your way to the podium. Seeing none, we'll go to council member questions and comments. There we go. Mayor Pro Tem Lim.
Thank you for your report. Has that been clearly established in the conversation about the regionalization of HHS that the state legislature has to pass legislation on that because the executive order came forward previously?
The state does not have to pass anything if they want to keep, as a result of the executive order, but if they want to regionalize, they need to sponsor and introduce legislation. So that is required for the regionalization to go forward.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, any other of my colleagues, any questions, concerns, comments on the session? Oh, I guess you were very thorough. Well, thank you both so much, and thank you, Ms. Brouillard, and we're ready to rumble.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
We'll now continue with the report section of the agenda. City Manager Hoffman, do you have a report this evening?
I do, thank you, Mayor. 2 items. One is a postmortem or a debrief subsequent to the grass fire that occurred on January 5th. We are all anticipating Broomfield continues to be kissed by incidents that occur, but we haven't had to endure the full force of whether it be a grass fire or natural lands fire or flooding, as many of our communities and neighboring communities have had to endure for the last decade. It is phenomenally dry, as all of us can attest to. None more than North Metro fire. So that grass fire allowed us another opportunity within internal communications from CCOB and the police department, our emergency management team, and North Metro Fire to get together to talk about the speed with which we communicate to council, the speed with which we communicate to the community, and balancing that with incident command. So the grass fire incident command was Louisville. So Boulder County took lead on those communications, ensuring that our community has the appropriate access to the notification systems. Broomfield is on the notification system with Jefferson County because we share CAD to CAD and 911. Boulder County is on a separate notification system. So from a staff perspective, we need to ensure that those communities and neighborhoods, rather, that border Boulder have the opportunity and knowledge and access to sign up for those notifications. And it behooves us to do a clearer and better job of where to go, under what circumstances, to have a centralized landing page so that you're not having to track on your phone, on your computer, on your notification systems. So we're working forward on that. We will be having a community town hall for emergency management on Monday, February 23rd from 6 to 7:30 at the Audi. We'll have North Metro Fire, we'll have Broomfield PD, we'll have water. Oftentimes, community members don't understand the impacts to our water sources, but all of Broomfield's water sources are also north. So it's a component that has implications for future water use and that emergency management planning when we do have those grass fires or wildfires. You'll also be having a water conversation, very timely, coming next Tuesday, which is the 21st. We're not going to be talking about emergency management at that time, but it will give you a visual indication of where our water resources are. Also, we're going to be having a multitude of conversations as we move through this year on all things water, including what this dry season and the implications of that, including the Colorado River Compact. So all things water. We are grateful to our North Metro partners For the fire districts, our PIOs work very closely together, and we're looking forward to showcasing, if you will, the progress that has been made since the devastating and tragic Marshall Fire. And we will have additional information going out on all of our channels, social media, and in the newspaper and on our websites, highlighting and welcoming the community to attend the town hall on the 23rd. It would be an interesting, even if you don't border any one of the open spaces or any one of the Boulder areas, we'll also be going through how to mentally prepare for, if you have an emergency at your home, what the go bags are, what to have packed, what to have planned, know your neighbors. What is that emergency bag? Where is it located? Where are your documents? All of those things that we think about doing, but we don't do until you're in that 11th hour when your brain just simply does not work and you need to activate. So those are all of the items that we'll also be talking about. The second item, Mayor, and thank you for indulging me for a longer update than I normally have. We wanted to share some really good news. The mayor and I spoke earlier today. We went out for our bond for our water. We were anticipating a positive response. What we got was a more than positive response. With our bond council, we were making a decision about how early to go out in the bond market. Sometimes it behooves you to wait until the end of the first quarter so we could anticipate what the interest rates were. We made the decision to go out early when the capital would be on the table, thinking that that bond rating of double A would serve us well. Not only did it serve us well, but we had more interest than we were anticipating. The interest rate that we got was similar to what significantly larger organizations get for a AAA rating. Council will be sent the write-up from our Royal Bank of Canada, the RBC, those that were helping us navigate this, and gratitude not only from staff's perspective and for the community's perspective. We take these rate increases seriously. We know how impactful they are. The reason that we were able to get that bond rating was because of the difficult decision that this council made to increase those rates for year 2 out of year 5. So thank you. Additional information to come. We're going out this week for the COP, Certificate of Participation, for the police department. That's, of course, is based on sales tax. So it's a little different formulaic approach. We'll update council next week on how that bond sale goes. That concludes my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manager Hoffman. We'll be staying tuned for more information. Attorney Rogers, do you have a report?
I do. I have 2 items. The first one is about my office. In December, I just want to recognize that Assistant City and County Attorney Joel Heine was recognized as the outstanding Assistant City Attorney by the Metro City Attorneys Association, made up of all the city attorney's office in the metro area. Joel's been with our office for about 3.5 years now, came to us from the DA's office, and those who work with Joel and staff and council has met Joel know that he is a good egg. He's a good lawyer. He loves Broomfield, and he really likes the work that he does. So I just wanted to publicly recognize him for this outstanding accomplishment. The other report, and Mr. Crothers, thank you for teeing it up. Did he head out? Oh, I'll have to give him the report personally. About the vacancy. Councilmember Wing, congratulations. And that will result in a vacancy in Ward 1 tomorrow. So shout out to the clerk's office, to CMO, who've already worked out the vacancy process. We do have a process. Applications will open for the Ward 1 council member spot on January 16th. Applications will close on January 30th. And then we'll look at doing a town hall, a candidate forum of sorts. And one of the questions that I wanted to check with council right now, if we could get some direction, is would you like that online? Would you like that in person? A virtual forum means that people could watch it. We would have it in this room, which means it can be broadcast Mayor, council members, what would you like?
We'll go down the line. Councilmember Twist, do you have a preference? Sorry, Kenny. You won't be here. Do you care? Okay. Councilmember Twist.
I would like to request a hybrid process with in-person that is available streaming with comments available online and questions to come in from online. So as inclusive a process as possible.
Councilmember Delgadillo.
Hybrid or virtual, thank you.
Okay. I prefer virtual mainly for the resources that it would take to do a hybrid. And trying to schedule 10 of us, 11 of us, well, 10 of us, I guess now, in person is a challenge. So I think that that's part of it. And that would be my preference, just more for ease of implementation. Mayor Pro Tem Lim?
I think it'll be most practical to have a virtual process.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown?
I would also support the virtual process.
Okay. Councilmember Anderson?
Okay, I'm going to lean towards virtual, even though I love in-person things. I can see the scheduling difficulties, so I am good with virtual.
Thank you. Councilmember McKenzie?
Virtual, thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Henkel?
Thanks for Councilmember Twist. I like her view of inclusivity, so either one is fine by me. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Cohen?
Consensus seems to be virtual. I'm fine with that.
Thank you. And we would stream this for the public to
Yes.
watch, so they could still take part. Oh, sorry. Councilmember Ward?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Twist. I think we should be doing a hybrid approach. I think filling a vacancy is a very important decision that we as council will be making, and in person is certainly, I think, a better forum place, but also recognizing that there are individuals who may not have the time or the ability to come down, and so being inclusive for that. And while it might be challenging to schedule people's schedules, this is our job. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for your input. Do you have consensus, Ms. Rogers?
I think we do, Mayor, and so it would be virtual. And for council members who've been involved in this process before, or council members who have actually filled vacancies before, this would replace the Spark Hire. So we had done Spark Hire interviews that you would view in the past. This time it'll be a candidate forum, and with council members having a chance to talk to the people who submit applications. For those who might be interested, or friends who you know that might be interested, this information will be posted on our website within the next 12 hours. We'll get this up quickly. If you have questions, definitely reach out.
All right. Thank you.
Mayor, if
Councilmember Twist?
I apologize.
I would just like to express that I can't imagine a decision that is worth scheduling difficulties over more than this one of who is going to represent my neighbors. So if we do go fully virtual, can we make it as accessible as possible, putting questions out, creating forums, places for people to come talk, and possibly scheduling an in-person meeting, not necessarily for members of the public as part of the process. So having an option for people to come and talk to council members and ask them questions, or potential council members.
That organically has happened once we open up the process. People that are interested in applying will reach out to council members to ask questions. So we respond to any requests that people have questions, they'll contact us. We've never really done that before for a vacancy. It's time. Takes time.
I would argue it's worth it.
Noted.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask council about the dates? What date would be? We're looking at February 11th or February 18th, and then the appointment to occur on the 24th.
Say those dates again?
February 11th.
For what?
It's a Wednesday evening for the forum.
Okay.
And then anticipating that the council appointment would be on February 24th. And just for awareness, February 12th is the State of the City, Mayor. I'm assuming that you're going to have a large crowd and participation for that. So just for your schedule. And then February 19th is the board and commission interviews.
Those are in person, yeah. The 11th for the forum, and the vote would be on the 24th?
Correct. So we could do the 11th or the 18th, both on Wednesday evenings.
We could do another poll of council and see what date works best for the whole. Anybody have any conflicts on 11th or 18th they want to flag? Councilmember Twist.
I have a conflict. Avoid that.
Avoid the 11th. Councilmember Ward.
The only hard conflict so far on my calendar is the 18th is Dr. Cog. So if we do have it on the 18th, I'll have to abstain from that, or not abstain, but I won't be able to attend that meeting. There might be something on the 11th, but we might have to move that if this will have to take a little bit more precedent for that.
See the challenges.
Councilmember Ward, may I ask the time of the Dr. Cog meeting?
Yeah, I have to be down there starting at 5 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
For the performance and engagement meeting, and then the actual meeting starts at 6:30.
What do y'all think? Should we?
Well, from a time perspective, if we push beyond the 24th, we'd have to go after the boards and commission interviews. We're anticipating that you'll have about 90 folks that you'll be having to conduct those interviews. And if we move it earlier in February, it'll be much closer to the council focus session. Essentially, it's not an issue for us. It just cuts down on the time that we're able to communicate to potential Ward 1 residents to invite them to either discuss with existing council and or kind of do the homework to see what the time commitment would be. So council's direction, we can come back at a later date, but then it bumps us into that March timeframe in order to move this. We're on a time frame.
I know. We have a clock that's ticking. So, I don't know. Do we have to decide right now?
No, we'll send something out tomorrow, and then perhaps it sounds like Councilmember Ward is the challenge on the 18th, and perhaps we can ensure that the kind of the Councilmember Twist's point, the review of the applications as they come in instead of a package, that you're able to review and look at those, make notes to your council colleagues. But we'll send a note out tomorrow for confirmation. Again, trying to be mindful of that 60-day confirmation and appointment date.
And in the past, I mean, I don't think anything precludes council members from meeting with applicants one-on-one.
No.
So you can meet with any applicant one-on-one. And this appointment, for everybody to know, we passed a charter amendment. This appointment will only be until this November's election. So they won't even be serving a full year. They will have to run again in the November election. And then if they want to continue, they'll have to run again a year later in the odd year. So the voters will have lots of access and opportunity to choose their rep twice. So, hope that helps. All right, well, more to come on that. Thank you very much, Attorney Rogers and Manager Hoffman. So moving on to the consent agenda.
Mayor?
Yes.
Could I ask a quick question on the manager's report?
Sure.
Before we move, real quickly. I'm sorry, I wanted to circle back to the haystack fire. And I had a question I wanted to, if you could address. There was some concern that, the haystack was in Louisville, but the smoke was rolling into Broomfield, which caused a lot of panic. I was in Aurora, but I was getting a whole bunch of ring notifications of people seeing smoke blow by them. So my question was if there was any consideration, or was it discussed, of using our own lookout alert to let people know we're aware there's a fire. There's no need to evacuate, or there's not in Broomfield, but just it seems lately with social media and ring alerts and everything else that it's incumbent upon us to let residents know we're aware of a potential threat and to alleviate that anxiety and alert them. In that alert, let them know, perhaps look to Boulder or whoever is the who has jurisdiction at that time, assuming the fire doesn't spread. Was there any consideration to that in terms of a protocol if this happens again?
Yes, and thanks for the opportunity to clarify that, Councilmember Cohen. Yes, and that's part of the early communication with council. It's not just an email to council saying, yes, we're aware of what's happening, but rather it is not lost on us or our team that smelling the smoke and or seeing the smoke creates great angst. So yes, those communications will be immediate. And we are working on providing the links for additional information so that we're not using Lookout Alert or Code Red or Everbright, which is the Boulder communication, to be giving those constant updates. But more about we are aware, we know it's happening. Here's where to go for additional information. So more of the acknowledgement and then sending them to our central landing page, which is why it's so important to have a very robust central landing page that each one of our entities will be using for the critical incident communication as well as all communication moving forward. So yes, Councilmember Cohen, we appreciate that suggestion.
All right, thank you. Council's consideration of the consent items is next. The clerk will read all of the consent items by title, and there'll be one opportunity for comments and council questions and comments. Will the clerk please read agenda items 6A through 6D by title?
6A, approval of minutes for the regular council meetings of December 2nd and December 9th, 2025. 6B, resolution number 2026-01, designating the public place for posting notices of public meetings. 6C, proposed resolution number 2026-02, approving the 2026 Home Investment Partnership Program Agreement with the City of Boulder as the lead agency for the Boulder Broomfield Home Consortium for tenant-based rental assistance. 6D, proposed resolution number 2026-04, approving the 2026 Juror List Intergovernmental Agreement with the Colorado Judicial Department and delegating authority for future juror list agreements.
Thank you. We'll now proceed with public comments. If there are any residents using the call-in service, indicate your desire to speak by pressing *9 to raise your hand. We'll start with in-person comments on consent if anybody would like to be heard on these items. Seeing none. Anyone on the phone? Okay. Does any member of council have any questions on these agenda items? Seeing any. Is there a motion by council that consent items 6A through 6D be approved? Councilmember Nguyen.
I make this motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Anderson. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, council, please cast your vote electronically on our new screens. All council members have entered their vote, and the results will be displayed on the screen. Councilmember Ward, what is your vote verbally?
Yes.
Councilmember Ward has voted yes. Now all council members, you're not really visible to me, so I apologize. I'm not meaning to forget you. So that passes unanimously. Thank you. The first item under action items this evening is the public hearing and council's consideration on second reading of an ordinance approving a business investment agreement with GLC Health Ventures, LLC. I'll now declare the public hearing open. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor. And Economic Development Director Jeff Schreier is going to join us this evening and giving us a brief overview. Mr. Schreier.
Yes, and I don't think I got the promotion yet. Economic Development Manager.
What?
Did you call me Director? Yeah.
Did you get promoted? Is she joking?
Yeah. No, I joke. I kid. Robert's over there. Oh, yeah, no worries. We'll go ahead and skip to the next slide and just kind of leave this up here as review since we did do the full presentation on the first reading. And then we'll let you know that we do have representatives from Ernest Health and GLC here. GLC is the one that will be doing the construction of the site, and then Ernest Health will be doing the operations at the site for the rehabilitation facility. So they'll be here to answer any questions that council has.
Oh, that was it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was waiting for more. All right. Well, then we'll proceed with public comments. Does anyone want to be heard on this item? Please make your way to the podium. Anybody online? Thank you, Curtis. Well, questions from council are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion, and the time to introduce amendments and state positions for or against this item is later. Are there any questions from council? What about you, Councilmember Ward, since I can't see you?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Well, then there being no questions, the public hearing is closed. Next is council's consideration of proposed ordinance number 2282. Will the clerk please read the proposed ordinance by title?
Ordinance number 2282, approving a business investment agreement with GLC Health Ventures, LLC.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance on second and final reading and order published by title? Councilmember Delgadillo.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Nguyen.
I second this motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll move forward to the vote. Council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote, and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes unanimously 10-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Schreier. All right, the next item under action items this evening is the public hearing and council's consideration on second reading of an ordinance updating the landscape code relating to turf and other related revisions. I'll now declare the public hearing open. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, and I see waiting in the wings is Kate Volz. She is our senior landscape architect. Please introduce us to this item and walk us through it, Kate. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. This is a brief summary of the update. Additional information can be found with the first reading presentation and memo that are available online. First slide, please. This update, as stated previously, aligns our landscape code with the new state water conservation laws and standardizes some terminology. It's important to note that our current existing landscape code is already more restrictive than the state's minimum requirements, and these changes do not affect single-family homes. Next slide, please. As mentioned in the first reading, the following definitions are proposed to be updated in the landscape code: functional turf, non-functional turf, invasive plant species, and the revised permitted uses of artificial turf. Next slide. As I've stated previously, native seed is an alternative ground cover for areas that would fall under the non-functional turf, which would be medians, right-of-ways, etc. And these two definitions are also going to be included to help differentiate between native seed as a turf alternative and native seed for native areas. Next slide, please. And if this is approved on second reading, I would like to have an effective date of January 31st. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now proceed with public comments. If any residents are using the call-in service, please indicate your desire to speak by using *9 to raise your hand. We'll start with in-person public comments. If you'd like to be heard, please make your way to the podium, state your name and neighborhood for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, and staff. My name is Jesse Applegate. I'm from Country Estates. I highly support this measure for putting native seed back into our options for, sowing our various areas that are dirt normally. If we say we are highly focused on water conservation, and this is a very good way to go about that, I think. This should save us a great deal of water that we put through our sprinklers, according to my understandings of such things. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your input. Would anyone else like to be heard? Not seeing anyone. Questions from council are next. Does any member of council have any questions regarding this item? Councilmember Ward? Nope, I don't see her. There being no further questions, the public hearing is closed. Next is council's consideration of proposed ordinance number 2291. Will the clerk please read the proposed ordinance by title?
Ordinance number 2291 to update the Landscape Code, Chapter 17-70 relating to turf and other related provisions.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance on second and final reading and order published by title? Councilmember Wynn.
I make this motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Delgadillo.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move forward to the vote on ordinance number 2291. Council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote, and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes unanimously 10-0. Thank you very much. The next item under action items is council's consideration on first reading of a proposed ordinance related to oversized and commercial vehicles. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you. And making their way down, I'm not sure who it looks like. Mr. Murray is going first. Brandon.
Yes, I am.
Please introduce us to this item. Thank you. I know you all have been working extremely hard on this over the last several months. Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Manager Hoffman. Good evening, Council, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, I'm here to discuss the amendment to Chapter 1012 of the Broomfield Municipal Code relating to oversized and commercial vehicles. Next slide, please. Our current municipal code regulates vehicles over 6 feet in height, and that's about the only definition in the current oversized vehicle code. Recreational vehicles, those that we think of as trailers, motorhomes, campers, are not prohibited from parking indefinitely as long as they're operable condition. Tires inflated, operates, and has valid state license plates. I was here on April 15th last year on a study session where we discussed RV parking, and at that time I was directed to draft an ordinance limiting RV parking duration. Next slide. Thank you. Public concerns. As discussed back in April, prolonged RV and trailer parking in neighborhoods. These can create safety hazards such as visual obstructions, line of sight obstructions for both our drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians. The aesthetic and neighborhood character impacts of an RV parked in the neighborhood for a long period of time. We discussed non-residents, such as folks from our neighboring jurisdictions, know that we do not have regulations on RVs and use our public streets to park and store their RVs during their trips. And then there's hazards such as electrical cords, sometimes water lines that run over the public sidewalk and public right-of-way to these RVs that are parked on public streets. Next slide. So the proposed ordinance limits RV parking on public streets to 72 hours in any 14-day period. It permits parking only for loading, unloading, maintenance, and trip preparation. It also prohibits parking these recreational vehicles if they're leaking any fluids or they're connected to any utilities. It also limits non-wheel detachable recreational equipment. You can think of those as those truck bed campers. And then establishes penalties and authorizes towing. And I want to emphasize, we are talking about public streets here. We are not talking about driveways or other private property. Next slide. So the enforcement of this investigation enforcement is primarily on the code compliance unit within the Broomfield Police Department. We focus on education and voluntary compliance, and I know I've been here a few times stressing this. And just to highlight that in a broad overview, most of our violations we initiate by issuing a courtesy notice to the resident. That is just a piece of paper. It can even be verbal that, hey, you are in violation of this code. We'll be back in, usually it's about 7 days to check. We move on from that usually to a notice of violation. We can work with folks at that point and give them more time if the circumstances justify. And then we can move on to either a summons or an administrative citation, which is a penalty, a civil penalty. And in some cases, we can abate the violation or tow the vehicle. And that's just a broad, general overview of our process. This would be subject to the new administrative citation under Chapter 113 of our municipal code. And again, that's that civil penalty that was actually just passed late last year. Vehicle towing for repeated or serious violations or when the owner is non-responsive. A lot of these vehicles are parked next to, right next door to where the owners live, and we foresee being able to contact those owners of those RVs and have those conversations. Towing would really be limited to those that just are not responsive, or in those situations where the RV has just been abandoned here, and we have experienced that on a number of occasions. Next slide. So this is data from 24. I haven't had time to compile data for 25. But in 24, we had 91 resident complaints received related to RVs. I can tell you, just a broad overview I did earlier this afternoon, we were over 100 complaints for 2025. But in 24, we issued 44 notices of violation notices. 58 were self-initiated. So of those, so in addition to 91 resident complaints, we also had 58 initiated by our code officers. And then we issued 3 summonses. And we towed 4 recreational vehicles. I do know in 25 we issued 2 summonses related to recreational vehicles. Next slide. So, comparison to other cities. Many cities regulate RVs and trailer parking on public streets. Many of our neighboring jurisdictions, Westminster, Boulder, Longmont, and a number of others. These regulations vary by vehicle type, time limits, and enforcement approach. What I mean by that is some jurisdictions only limit the parking to only while they're loading and unloading. And if you're not actively loading or unloading that RV, it can't be parked there. Other jurisdictions do give a time frame of 72 hours, 48 hours, like we have done here. Let's see here. Proposed ordinance aligns with those regional practices. Next slide. So in summary, it addresses the long-term parking concerns related to RVs on our public streets. It does not add any new restrictions related to private property. Improves our neighborhood aesthetics and safety. Establishes enforceable fair time limits for residents. And again, aligns with our regional practices. And one thing I want to add in there, this section does currently prohibit living and sleeping in RVs on our public streets. That is something my department has routinely been addressing through complaints from residents. And that section, there was some minor language changes made in that, but that still remains in the proposed amendment. I believe that's it. Next slide. That's it.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Rowe. We'll now proceed with public comments. If anyone would like to be heard on this item, please make your way to the podium, state your name and neighborhood for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Bill Crothers, Northmore, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, and staff. I just have one question on the 72-hour limit. Is that like, so what if they move to the next street over the next day? Is this a thing where they get one notification and that's for the whole city type of thing, or is that?
Mr. Rowe?
In response to that question, the code does have language in there that that you cannot move the RV to another street or into another area to evade that 72-hour requirement. So it does address.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Thank you, Mr. Crothers.
Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council and staff, Jesse Applegate, Country Estates. I'm of two minds about this one, because on the one hand, I know exactly who this is pointed at. I lived in Westminster for the first 9 years of my life, and we had one fella on the street who had an RV there, and you could not access about half the street just because he parked it there and he had all of his recreational stuff, and it was just all the time there. Very annoying stuff, very difficult to maneuver around. It's caused us a lot of grief. On the other hand, I find myself a little bit concerned about what this might mean for some of the folks who find themselves living in mobile homes in our city and county. I understand where we're coming from, especially with keeping the vehicles off the public streets, but I'm not sure we have any alternatives, and that might be a misconception on my own part for people in such a situation. But I think we should have what did I say? I think we should have capabilities and exceptions for somebody who might find themselves in that position, so they don't find themselves a criminal as well as homeless, which would be a great deal more problematic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kendra Tran, and my family and I own a small business in Broomfield. We're probably about 2 blocks away from Burbank Street. And I'm one of the people who have complained to Murray a couple days ago about this RV and bus situation that's parked right on Burbank with multiple cars from the same owner. And the response that I received from him was just based on Broomfield not having a time-limited parking or a restriction on the amount of cars someone can have in a public space or a public street. And so he says, as long as the cars are parked legally and not blocking any sidewalks or people aren't sleeping in it, he said technically they can remain there indefinitely. And because we have a business that's not directly affected by these RVs or buses that are parked along the street, I have a lot of regulars who are also small business owners who all work on Burbank, and they come in and they ask me, or they're venting to me about how frustrating it is that, this one owner has so many different vehicles just blocking this one main street on the back where it's industrial, a lot of businesses, and I don't have a response for them. I just told them the most that I can do as a community member for you, even though I don't live in Broomfield, is to message, the city and to see if I can help you, And so then when I come back to report to them after this past weekend, I'm just like, you're not going to believe the response that I got. There's no time limit. They can remain there indefinitely, and I'm sorry, And so I hope you guys take into consideration putting a time limit and just finding a good solution for all the people that are affected indirectly and directly. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to be heard? Please come on up.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Mike Roswell, and I manage some properties on Burbank Street. And I've been managing these properties for 20 years plus now. We help out with a lot of small businesses. We worked extensively with a Precious Child for almost a decade. Our business is these small businesses. For over 8 months, one individual has been allowed to park a old converted bus and a relatively dilapidated old RV, which I personally love RVs. I love to travel. I'm fine with that. It has created a choke point. It has created a dangerous line of sight visual obstruction. It has created a situation where cars now have to take turns going down the street. Hundreds of people use the street every day. My tenants consist of schools, electricians, all walks of life. One man has been able to exploit this loophole and permanently park and use this for storage. I don't know if it's in avoidance of being using a proper storage area, but he's absolutely exploited this loophole. His vehicles have been permanently there, creating this dangerous situation, collecting trash. My response, has been that they can't do anything because he's kept them plated. So I appreciate you guys listening. It's been a very frustrating situation. I've heard back from realtors. I've heard from my tenants. I've had a few tenants tell me that they're leaving, that Burbank Street's just not what it used to be. It's a nice place, and it's kind of changed over the last 8 months. It's been a very frustrating situation. So again, I appreciate all your time, and have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to be heard?
Good evening. I'm Kim Tuisini-Pansai from The Outlook. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council and staff. And I think this ordinance is rather clear that, it's governing parking of RVs and oversized vehicles, and we already have an ordinance in place that prohibits actually living in a vehicle parked on a public street. And I imagine that would be, a safety issue. If somebody was living in a vehicle and some car comes crazy driving down that street and hits the vehicle, obviously anybody who's inside that vehicle is not in a safe position. On the other hand, I do empathize with a situation of somebody who has no choice but to live in their car or to live in an RV. And I have seen, close to Broomfield High School, evidence of such a vehicle in that situation. And so my request is obviously not in connection with this ordinance, but I would recommend that, the city and county of Broomfield consider how to help the people who are in this situation, living in an RV, no place to park. That's not a good situation. And so this could be a separate issue that legitimately should come before council and try to figure out an appropriate solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to be heard? All right. Then questions from council are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. The time to introduce amendments and state positions for or against this item is later. Are there any questions from council? Councilmember Delgadillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we heard some valid concerns about unhoused folks. What does the playbook look like if we were to encounter someone who is living out of an RV? I appreciate that there's an emphasis on education, and I know that Broomfield, I'm very proud that the city and county handles folks in a very humane way. So what would that playbook look like for the team?
Sure. That playbook looks like, as far as how we respond to those calls, is we go out, we have contact with those individuals at those recreational vehicles, have conversations, find out what's going on. And we do have some resources, and the first that comes to mind is safe parking. And I know that program has kind of been in a little bit of state of flux lately. It was shut down briefly last year, and I think they're trying to bring it back. But basically, it's a program that allows folks to park on a couple of private properties, park their RVs and reside on a couple of private parcels in town. So we provide those resources and any other resources through our partners. But we do issue a notice of violation that we do have information they're living or sleeping in that RV, and based on the circumstances, it may be 3 days or 7 days that we will come back and speak with them again. We can also mobilize our B Corps unit that works out of the police department and help us with those contacts, and they also have resources that can help. Generally, we're pretty successful in getting in working with those folks and getting them to relocate their RVs. Sometimes that's outside of Broomfield, sometimes that is 3 blocks down the road, and sometimes to one of the safe parking locations. I do know folks have found places on private property around town to be able to park their RVs as well. So the outcomes of those can vary widely. In some cases, or one comes to mind, we've had to issue a summons to the person for living or sleeping in an RV.
That's helpful information. And then in the event that someone's vehicle, RV, what have you, is seized, what does the process look like for getting it back if it's been towed? What does that look like?
They would have to contact they would contact us, find out who and where it was towed to. They would contact that company, pay any fees associated with that tow, and prove ownership, insurance, and then they'd be able to get that vehicle back.
All right, that's very helpful.
Is that correct? Okay. Okay.
We're all having a moment. Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Ward had his hand up next. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple quick questions. So first is, in the presentation, you mentioned there were a number of complaints that were received, 94 roughly, if I remember correctly. Do you know what the ratio of resident to business owner or business tenant is?
I do not know that.
Okay. And then my next question is, do we have data on, of the interactions that we have or contacts with we have with those individuals who are parking on the street, do we know how many of them are just people that are parking in front of their own properties and either using it as storage of their RV or forgot about putting it away after coming back from a trip or something like that, versus those who are unhoused and need a place to safely park and stay?
I do not have exact number on that. I can just say from reviewing all these complaints that come in, it's probably close to 50-50 between residential complaints regarding RVs associated with a particular home and those that are being lived in actively around town.
Okay, thank you. And then as part of this kind of ordinance, we're also, if I'm not mistaken, we're also increasing, or there's a request to increase the size permitted for kind of non-oversized vehicles from 7 feet to 8 feet, if I'm remembering correctly.
Close. Yes, part of the discussion we had in April was our current definition of an oversized vehicle is 6 feet or higher. That was passed in, I believe, 1978, when I don't believe we had many vehicles over 6 feet. Today, many of our passenger vehicles, SUVs, trucks, even our code compliance trucks are over 6 feet in height. So that was increased to 7 feet to eliminate a lot of these typical passenger vehicles with some additional requirements in there as well.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for misspeaking from 7 to 8 and 6 to 7. Thank you for that clarification. have we ever issued a citation for a vehicle being oversized? Like as just a normal passenger vehicle, like you walk by a Suburban or a 1500 Chevy Silverado 1500. Have we ever issued a citation for being oversized?
I do not recall a citation. The last one I recall involved a GMC truck where we issued a notice of violation and worked with the truck owner about the parking violation, but we didn't have to issue a ticket, a summons. We were able to resolve that.
Okay. Thank you. Those, I think, are all of the questions that I have right now. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Next is Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple of questions to clarify from your presentation. I know I emailed you already. Thank you for those responses. On your presentation about 91 complaints, would you say that's 91 complaints about 91 RVs or 91 complaints about 3? What kind of problem are we dealing with?
The far majority of those are individual different RVs. We have received a large number of complaints about the RVs and vehicles on Burbank.
In particular.
So there's a number of those, and those probably account for a good dozen or more. But otherwise, it's
so several dozen issues of cars and or RVs. I wanted to clarify, this ordinance includes the prohibition of sleeping in the vehicle, but that's already in our city code, correct? This is just redundant?
It's in this code. We updated the language a bit, but
this would replace that existing language. So in other words, it's already illegal for me to put a car on this public street and sleep in it.
Correct. It's in section 1012 060. Right now it says shall not be used for living, sleeping on any street.
And so the inclusion in this ordinance is just to update that.
The inclusion is in this ordinance is because we're addressing all the sections of the code. That portion is not being modified other than to address oversized vehicle and major recreational vehicles.
Okay.
These new terms.
The other change in that section is the current code says adds cooking. And our review of this ordinance, as we were preparing this amendment, we determined that could conflict with food trucks. So we are removing the cooking out of that and just leaving sleeping and living.
Okay. Obviously, there was some concern raised by Mrs. Escobar and some other folks here about the practical impacts. Has it been your experience that because we don't have a prohibition and Westminster does, I don't know if Thornton does, are people here because they've been pushed out of those communities to Broomfield? Is that the practical effect that their ordinances have had?
Yeah, I believe that's a practical effect that we've seen in.
And the practical effect if we adopt this is we'll push people perhaps into Adams County, unincorporated Adams County or Boulder County.
Yeah, and I guess speaking more broadly in my experience in handling encampments and working with our population that is experiencing homelessness, yes, if Denver or Westminster starts working those areas and pushes folks around, we can see them come into Broomfield, and then same when we make those contacts and tell them they can't camp in that particular location or park that RV in that particular location, yeah, it causes there's an effect to that. And
okay. And in that situation, you find somebody who maybe is living in this, if you could repeat that, what's the process? We refer them to a nonprofit, or what kind of services are we able to provide?
Again, we can connect them with with B Corps. They can come out and offer services. We give them information on safe parking. We tell them that if they can find a location on private property with the owner consent, that could maybe work out. But we have that conversation. And then in some cases, we'll issue a courtesy notice or issue a notice of violation for the sleeping in the RV. And if we'll tell them we'll come back in 3, 4, 5 days, maybe sometimes 7 days, depending on the circumstances. And if they are still there and have not moved, then it's a decision at that point, a discretionary decision on their behalf to give them a little bit more time, or maybe go ahead with issuing a summons.
Okay.
Again, we've only had to issue one summons in 2025 for that.
And you mentioned safe parking. Are you referring to safe lots? Is that?
Yes, I believe
Because that was a concern. Safe Lots, I understand, is a program where you can fill out a form and it'll identify places you can park. Correct. I don't know how many Broomfield actually has. Obviously, you don't want to advertise the locations. And that's one concern that's been raised to me, is that we don't have an RV park in Broomfield. We don't have a area necessarily to refer people to that exists. So I don't know if you tell them to find a private property owner, or have you had success with Safe Lots in having them go to those designated areas that have been found?
Some success. Again, I know the program has gone through some changes recently, and I can't speak of any recent success, but yeah, there has been some success. I know there's a lot of requirements, though. I believe they have to have valid license plates on the vehicles. There's got to be insurance, and some other things that sometimes are not met, and they cannot go to those locations because of those requirements.
And Mr. Murray, if I may add, Councilmember Cohen, one of the restrictions is you can't park and live there. So you can park at a certain time, and then in the morning you have to leave. You can return that evening, but you can't stay all day. But you can certainly stay the night in a safe space.
Okay, appreciate that clarity. Well, hopefully we can, I'm sure maybe nonprofits have some ideas, and I appreciate the sensitivity you have shown, but maybe we can figure out a way to address that concern. One last thing real quickly, I mentioned it to you that, that I totally support, I know we see the need to have some regulation, but the devil's in the details. I know there are some folks here who have family members or visitors who come because we're Colorado, arrive in their RV before they go to the mountains, and they stay there at a friend's house for a week. And I mentioned to you, like Longmont has a policy, they have $25 7-day permit at a residence. Is that something, and I don't know if my colleagues would agree, it seems like a reasonable accommodation for a few people, because otherwise they'd have to have those you'll have to go park at Walmart that night and come back, or sleep at Walmart or something, if you have an RV, because there is no RV lot in town. How difficult would it be to implement such a policy of a $25 7-day permit once a year or twice a year, so that people who have friends or family visiting them don't have to send them off to the Walmart parking lot?
Sure, there would be some difficulty. It's a program that does not exist, so it would be creating something that doesn't exist. It would create challenges with enforcement. Visitors versus residents, we would have to first establish that, and oftentimes we don't or are unable to make contact with folks at the property. And I would presume if they were visitors, they may be out and enjoying the outdoors or whatever, and be difficult to contact. So there would be a delay, or maybe in some cases rather difficult or impossible to even determine whether they're visitors.
Well, I think in Longmont it's the resident, because it's their driveway, or not their driveway, but the space in front of their house.
Sure, so the resident applies for the permit?
Yeah.
But for this amendment, I mean, we did have this discussion back in the study session in April, and at that time the recommendation was not to have a permit process for many of these reasons, and the direction from council was not to include that in this amendment.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Murray, I just have only one quick question, and that's following Councilmember Delgadillo about where the RVs will be transported or towed. Does the facility is that facility in Broomfield, or is that outside of the jurisdiction of Broomfield? And do they usually, I guess, have capacity with? And again, I understand in the memo that this is like a handful of RVs, and so I'm just concerned because I know that this will take a lot of space.
Yeah, all of the tow yards we use, yes, absolutely have place for that. And sorry, welcome to new council members, and I'm Commander Witchlots with Broomfield Police Department, for those of you I haven't met yet. So yeah, all the tow companies would be able to store them for us, and we would anticipate used RV to be picked up fairly quickly because people are going to want that back. And like Manager Murray said, towing is our last resort. That is not what we want to do. We want compliance first.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Commander. Thank you, Mr. Murray.
All right, thank you. Councilmember McKenzie.
Thanks. A couple of notes here. The first one is regarding the Burbank situation. Have we considered any localized solutions? Based on the correspondence that I've seen, it's been centered around the Burbank situation. So have we pursued or considered any localized solutions versus a citywide mandate?
No, we have not considered anything amendment-wise specific to, or ordinance-wise specific to Burbank.
Any efforts specific to that situation?
Okay. The efforts, yes, my staff has patrolled Burbank repeatedly, beginning in the summer and continue to this day. So I know my staff has had many conversations with the owners or owner of the bus and RV that has been mentioned a few times already tonight, and has had conversations with other folks out there and just patrol that area frequently, just on a proactive basis.
What has been the effect or outcome of those conversations with them?
Continued frustration by the business owners out there. The last I was down Burbank just a couple of weeks ago, the bus, RV, and another vehicle that has been referenced several times tonight are still there. They are legally parked. There is not anything we can do to make those vehicles move. And we've had conversation with the owner of those vehicles, and the owner understands that as well.
Councilmember McKenzie, if I may, what you're seeing tonight is staff's response to council's direction. So if council deems a more localized approach, that is certainly the direction, whether it be via an amendment before the second reading. But it's, again, what you're seeing is in response to direction from prior study session conversations.
Do we have longitudinal data that suggests if this is a trend and how pervasive it is in the city?
No.
If safe parking is at capacity, what are viable alternatives?
Within the city and county of Broomfield, I am unaware of any other alternatives, other than just private lots where they may have the permission from the owner to park temporarily.
You mentioned earlier that in the past, when you had encounters, sometimes the RV owner would just park down the street. That is no longer an option if this were to pass, correct?
Correct.
They would have to remove from the city for 11 days to remain compliant and then come back?
Well, true. However, that ordinance also requires that they be actively loading, unloading, or trip maintenance as well to be able to park for that 72-hour period.
And Councilmember McKenzie, if I can, Manager Murray, from the prosecutor point of view, the the paragraph that says it's unlawful to move and repark in to another right-of-way for the principal purpose of evading enforcement isn't limited to time. So if somebody was doing that and waited the 11 days, but we knew that they were still moving around town, my staff would work with code enforcement to help try to address that owner. But if they still were trying to evade enforcement, we would work on building a case on invadement, their evasive maneuvers to try to avoid enforcement.
What is the marginal impact for those living in RVs today versus with this passed?
Considering that we already receive a number of complaints, especially from our business owners, about RVs being parked in the commercial and industrial areas around town and with occupants in those vehicles overnight, and then that we respond to those and currently enforce the provisions that exist in the code now that they are not able to live and sleep, I don't believe the impact to that community would be significantly changed with the passage of this. Yes, there are additional requirements, but I mean, again, I guess that's difficult to measure as well. But we are already doing this enforcement with the current provisions.
Said a different way, if someone was living in an RV today, what would happen to them? And then what would happen if this was passed?
Okay. Today, we would contact that person, again, have that conversation, issue any appropriate violation notice, return for a follow-up visit 3 to 7 days afterwards, continue with those enforcement steps until either they leave or we have to issue a court summons. After passage of this, that same process would continue. However, I guess you could say it would be easier to enforce because now there's additional requirement or prohibition. Not only you cannot sleep in it, but you also cannot park for more than the 72-hour period. So the best answer to your question, it'd be easier to enforce in those situations, but the process wouldn't change.
Were alternative scenarios modeled, and did we consider, or has consideration been given to how this might shift this issue to neighboring jurisdictions?
Alternatives were considered in my review of similar codes in other jurisdictions. As far as modeling or weighing how this would impact our neighboring jurisdictions, no.
Cool, thanks.
All right, thank you. Next is Mayor Pro Tem Lim.
Thank you. I recognize that we gave you direction to have this ordinance apply to the entire jurisdiction. My fellow council member has raised the idea that it could be localized. Can you briefly imagine how that would be the case, that you would localize this?
I don't think it'd be fair or equal. I think this is something that needs to apply citywide. I know there are a number of complaints that come from our residents in residential areas and equally from our business leaders in our commercial and industrial areas. And if I don't know how you assign something to a particular street or a zoning area. Yeah, I don't think that would be a fair or equal response or way to approach this.
Okay. Besides the business owners on Burbank who have their businesses in Ward 3, some of the other residents in Ward 3 wrote who live near Opal Street and Quartz Street. And they were documenting that they have had, near their residences, they've had recreational vehicles park for an extended period of time. So I guess that's evidence that there are residents that also complain about that. Those residents cited the fact that there was some construction, I think, on Opal, and then the recreational vehicle just moved to Quartz, and then there were different residents that were impacted. So how would this ordinance then address those problems that they cited?
Again, how it's written now, applying throughout the city and county. Opal Street, if anyone drives down Opal Street, especially in the summer months, it is, and many times, an RV park. There's a lot of open parking along there, and they can be back-to-back along Opal Street. Yes, there was some construction on Opal over the summer that displaced that around. This ordinance would be able to allow us to address those situations when they end up on Quartz or in other parts of the neighborhood. So regardless of where those RVs move and park to, we would still be able to address that situation equally.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Twist.
Thank you for the detailed responses that you sent to several questions earlier today. Those were really helpful. In one of those, you mentioned Section 1013-060, which defines a truck as a limit of over 10,000 pounds, restricting those to truck routes and not public right-of-way. A quick Google tells me that most buses and many RVs exceed that weight limit. Is that a possible, something that's already in code that you've looked at for the specific bus? I'm thinking on Burbank.
Those additional definitions that would, as far as relating to the gross vehicle weight of 10,000 or the rating of over 14,000, don't exist now. If approved, it would add those in, and yes, it would enable us to potentially use those provisions to address the bus. The oversized vehicle definition, over 7 feet, over 10,000 pounds, vehicles meeting that are not recreational vehicles would need to be parked 10 feet from a driveway or 30 feet from an intersection. Those are the only two requirements. Those requirements exist in the current code, but are applicable to vehicles that are 6 feet or higher. I don't know if I answered your question there, or that was clear as mud, probably.
Councilmember Twist, can I see if I'm hitting on it? And Manager Murray, please correct me if I'm wrong. So 101250 is written to apply to commercial vehicles connected with a commercial enterprise. So it's specific to those type of vehicles or construction equipment or machinery, large-scale delivery. So it's got that commercial component. I think that's why, even though the weight might be the same, an RV wouldn't necessarily fall into 10-12-050. I think the question that triggered the reference to that provision in the code was a question about a plumbing truck, which would be connected to a commercial enterprise. And even if that truck was a little bit smaller than maybe the RV next door, we could still potentially address that commercial plumbing truck because of 10-12-50. Yeah.
Okay, Thank you.
Okay, next is, you already went once, Mr. Councilmember McKenzie, so we're still going on first round, and that would be Councilmember Brown.
Thank you. And, Manager Murray, I appreciate the thoughtfulness that's clearly gone into this. Just a couple of questions. When you were answering one of the questions about what the process will be for someone who, in the proposed ordinance, if we, go forward with it as written, that an individual who's found living in their vehicle would immediately, it sounded like, receive a violation. I'm wondering if you think, or if there's the possibility that we could fall back to, as you were saying in your presentation earlier, the principle of education first, so that we could stipulate somehow, or at least have that be part of the process, that instead of showing up and saying, here's a violation to somebody who's already one of the most vulnerable people in our community, that they get that education.
Sure, and I think that's a very valid point. I believe that has to be the discretion of the officer making that contact and that interaction. Many of our contacts, most of them go very well. We have that cooperation, feedback, and we actually have a good conversation. And in those cases, many times it can be just left with a courtesy notice or a kind of a verbal warning. But I also think it's important that when we're out there discussing and telling them they're in violation of the law, it's also important to leave them with something explaining that violation and with an expectation, what we expect from them. And generally, when we're having those face-to-face contacts, we do that. Then there are situations where there is no cooperation. There is no opportunity to have a conversation, provide that education, and in those cases, it's appropriate just to leave the notice of violation, sometimes just taped on the door, and to leave at that point. So, I mean, it's the human nature. Sometimes things go very well, but to codify that and require a certain number of steps, I think kind of hamstrings the people in the field, the staff in the field doing that work.
Yeah, I can appreciate that it's situationally dependent. Switching gears to my second question, I do serve on my HOA board, so one of the things that we've received complaints about in my community is oversized vehicles and RVs that are parked for extended periods of time. I think historically we've heard a lot of, oh, we can't do anything about it. So in your experience of those, let's say in the last year, 100 complaints that you've received, what percentage of those would you say, you already said 50% or more residential kind of one-off, things like that. Can you give a sense of, if this proposed ordinance takes effect, how many of those are going to become enforceable?
I know I gave some data on this back in April, and I'm sorry I don't have that with me now, but a large number of the complaints that came in about an RV parked too long in the neighborhood or for a long time or for months or whatever, we were able to take enforcement action because it was in violation of the junk vehicle ordinance. The plates were expired, or the tires were flat, or they were parked too close to an intersection. So we were able to take action, maybe not addressing the specific complaint, that simply it's been there too long. The exact number of how many and how many more we would be able to address, I don't know exactly, but I do know it was less than half of the total complaints that we were about an RV being parked too long that we were able to address in another way.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I just want to say I appreciate the change in the vehicle heights for the passenger vehicles. It was that had come out of that concern also, where a lot of these standard trucks and SUVs, if they have to be 30 feet from that intersection and 10 feet from the driveway, and there was some concern with some residents who couldn't even legally park their truck in their front yard. So that was much appreciated. to see that change. And then I just have a couple of questions. So it really comes down to, I think there's, we see the need, and as somebody who has visits those businesses on Burbank Street, I'm very well aware of exactly that situation and the angst it causes me with my teenage daughter going there alone. So I just, I hear the concern about where do these vehicles go? And there's so just a question about, on that end of it, if there's a nonprofit that wanted to allow the parking in their parking lot, is there any special provision that, that they would need to have? Can any private entity just say, I'm going to allow parking of these vehicles in my lot and they can live in them overnight? Or is that not allowed?
Well, we're getting into zoning, and that's not my expertise. So I wouldn't go as far as saying that it could be allowed in any situation. I think there would be some required reviews and approvals in many situations. However, it has been successful because I know of 2 locations in Broomfield that have been able to allow that type of use for that overnight parking of RVs. So, but whether that could apply to any location, probably not.
Okay, but there might be some, that it's obviously, definitely a different question, but something that we could address at a different time. Okay, that's helpful. And then if this change has the opposite effect, and we now have some private owner who's like, all of a sudden there's like an RV pops up in their lot, they don't have to post anything. That's like, that car is just by nature of being parked there is trespassing, and they would just report it? Or, I mean, does that cause any issue potentially for some private entities?
Gotcha. So if through the passage of this ordinance and through our enforcement, it causes an RV to move into a private parking lot, and that owner of that property doesn't want that RV there, correct? They would contact the police department, and it would be a general trespassing complaint, and the police would respond and ask them to remove. I know Walmart on 120th, their loss prevention and security there have been very active in their lot of going out and asking people to move and not park there. So
that's helpful. That's all my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Henkel.
Sorry, I wasn't ready yet. I just have one question. This is just on public property, right? This is not on private. So I think I've seen over at Broomfield United Methodist Church, they do have safe parking over there. So I just want to be clear, this is just on public property, correct?
correct, just public right-of-way.
That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll go to anybody else in the first round. I think everybody's almost gone. So we'll go to you, Councilmember McKenzie, second round. You have 2 minutes.
Do we have an assessment of the capacity of all these private entities or nonprofits and how many RVs are floating out there, and if there is a supply-demand match?
No,
You touched on fairness and equality. For the fairness bit, I'm wondering, for the Burbank situation, which I totally understand and am familiar with, how do we balance the fairness of passing a law for 75K or so, right, residents versus this incident in terms of like the localized solutions?
Councilmember McKenzie, that's not really that's not a staff. It's more for your colleagues and a discussion that pursues afterwards. If I could add a point, just some history for our new council members. This started as a request for future action from Councilmember Marsh Holshin out of Ward 1, coming off of complaints mostly arising from 118th, I believe, at the time. And then other complaints, the Walmart parking lot, which is a little bit a different issue because it is private property. But especially for our new council members, there were complaints
from throughout the city and county. So the Burbank situation isn't what triggered this amendment change. It was Councilmember Marshallson's request for future action and then the follow-up study session in April.
Have we considered localized action, not with respect to streets and zoning, but with respect to contextual situation? For example, if I have an RV or a family member who's coming into town with an RV versus if I'm living in an RV, the towing or cost or fees may be drastically different in those contexts. So has that been considered?
Well, I don't believe the towing and impoundment costs would be different
It would
in
be
those
different
situations.
relatively, right? So if it costs me $1,500 to tow and I'm homeless and that's my home, that wipes me out versus if it's my family coming in. It's a fee, right?
I'll help a little bit with that question. So, specifically to your question, we could change the administrative fee that we tack onto it. Unfortunately, we don't control the businesses on what they charge for towing and storage. So that we wouldn't necessarily be able to control. It would be the companies that we're using. Now, we can ask for support or help, but we couldn't guarantee it with a private business.
Thank you. Any more questions from council? All right, seeing none. Next is council's consideration of proposed ordinance number 2293. Will the clerk please read the proposed ordinance by title?
Ordinance number 2293, amending Chapter 10-12, oversized and commercial vehicles.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance on first reading and order published in full? Councilmember Anderson?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mayor Pro Tem Lim?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Ward?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be very brief with this comment. I have no issues necessarily right now with the proposed changes for RV parking. My only concern so far is kind of the changes proposed for heights related to oversized vehicles. I think kind of being consistent with my philosophy is that I have a concern that increasing the permittable height for a normal vehicle continues to have this effect of encouraging even larger vehicles to be purchased or modified by the public, which create less safer streets for everyone, regardless of whether you're driving, walking, or riding a bike. I will vote yes for the time being, but I may have amendments coming forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any other discussion? Councilmember Cohen?
Just a quick remark that I will support this at this time too, may have an amendment later, but I think the discussion's been very helpful and I appreciate all the answers. And I think that for those who are concerned about the impact on those who live in vehicles, that this particular ordinance strikes me as not the vehicle, so to speak, to address that could be a separate initiative that we can look at that later on and perhaps in our focus session.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Nguyen?
I have some concerns as well, but I'm not going to have that much input into future consideration. I do have some concerns about the unhoused community because right now I think there's a rise of affordability. Unfortunately, homes are expensive and people are quite frankly using any opportunity and whatever they can to survive. And I believe that RVs are becoming more and more of a, desperate people make desperate decisions. And I feel like RVs have become the cheapest and most affordable option for a lot of unhoused individuals. And I recognize that Westminster and other communities have gradually, again, pushed them out. And of course, now we're seeing it here in Broomfield. So I'm going to vote yes, but obviously I don't have much say because this is my last council session. I just want to emphasize that there's some concerns for me.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Brown?
Thank you. Clearly, we received a lot of support urging us to support this new ordinance change. And I appreciated at the beginning during public comment that Kathy of our refuge here in town called in and asked us to acknowledge the fact that people who might be disproportionately impacted by this are less likely to engage in this process and let their voice be heard. So I very much appreciate my council colleagues taking them into consideration today. I will be supporting this proposal going forward with the acknowledgement that I think we need to do some work to figure out how to reach these people who are going to be impacted and not just push them out of the community.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll move forward to the vote on ordinance number 2293. Council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote, and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes 9-1. Well, looking at the time, it's 8:25. It's time for our 10-minute recess. So we'll go ahead and take a break now and come back at 8:35. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. And we were just getting started on item 7D, ordinance number 2283, amending chapter 1208, encroachments. Next, under action items, is council's consideration on first reading of a proposed ordinance related to encroachments. And I'm so sorry I called you Mr. Rowe, Mr. Murray. It just, it happens.
I'm used to it.
Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff, Mr. Murray, to summarize.
Okay. So regarding proposed ordinance number 2283, amending the Broomfield Municipal Code relating to encroachments. Next slide. Encroachments first, the ordinance related to encroachments first passed in 1991 and has not been amended since. Our current ordinance lacks clear definitions and modern standards. And the update aligns with the 2023 landscape standards to some degree. Next slide. So the purpose of this amendment is to define clearly, or better, clearly define what constitutes an encroachment and when it violates a code. This is a public safety issue. It's intended to improve safety and enforcement for pedestrians and motorists. And also helps give clear expectations to our residents, specifically that trims and shrubs need to be cleared 8 feet above our sidewalks and 15 feet above our streets. Those distances or those heights are not currently in our code, and it can be difficult when officers are having those contacts with residents, telling them, hey, it needs to be up 8 feet, when they go right to the code and say, well, it doesn't say it in our code. Why do I need to do that? So, next slide. This ordinance amendment also came about because of Public Works impacts. I was contacted well over a year ago by Public Works staff that they've been seeing an increase in damage to city vehicles due to low-hanging tree limbs and vegetation. In some cases, they contacted residents, asked that those limbs be trimmed back with some success, but asked for our help. And from that discussion, it was determined that the best course would be to improve some language in our existing code. Since 2020, there have been 30 accidents totaling $12,000 or just over $12,000 in damage involving our public works vehicles due to these low-hanging limbs. It impedes maintenance efficiency and increases project costs for our public works crews. Next slide. The code amendment also places some language in there that helps protect that sight triangle, that sight distance at intersections. It references the section 700 out of our standards and specs, in which discusses the what can and cannot be present in a sight triangle at intersections. So it ensures our drivers have unobstructed views at intersections. Next slide, please. So common complaints from our residents, again, unsafe sidewalks, tripping hazards, unpassable sidewalks in some cases. There's been a lot of wind lately, we know that. We've received a number of complaints about fences down and blocking sidewalks. That's an encroachment. Or fences partially blown over where folks can't get around those fences that are damaged. This is just an example. Again, obstructed visibility, tree limbs, bushes, things that have grown and not been trimmed that are close to corners, intersections and such. Street signs obscured. We make an effort every summer, late summer, to patrol our school zones and address signs that are being blocked by tree limbs that have grown all summer and now blocking important signs around our school districts. So again, another example. Line of sight hazards, again, that sight triangle, again, damage to vehicles, and then street and sidewalk lighting. As that vegetation is allowed to grow and not be trimmed, it starts blocking out the light provided from our various street lights and other ways to illuminate and make our sidewalks and streets safe. Next slide. So in this process, I did a comparison with other jurisdictions. Those include Boulder, Commerce City, Lakewood, Longmont, and Westminster. 3 of those 5 have specific clearance requirements, like that 8-foot and 15-foot over sidewalks and streets. They all have the authority to abate those violations. Our current code has the authority to abate those violations after 48 hours. In reviewing some of these other jurisdictions, some cities have no notice that the city has the explicit authority to immediately abate any encroachment up on the public sidewalk or public right-of-way, and then later bill that property owner for the cost of that abatement. So it kind of varied, anywhere from no time limit or no notice to up to 7 days. Next slide. And again, right now we're at kind of in the middle at 48 hours. Proposed ordinance overview, again, it defines the encroachments, the penalties, and abatement process. It adds a 15% administrative fee when an abatement is performed for the administrative cost of processing that. Those fees can be assessed as a lien until they're paid, and again, consistent with other surveyed jurisdictions. Next slide. Again, as I highlighted when we were discussing RVs, generally our process is a courtesy notice first, especially with these encroachments. Have that conversation, hopefully face-to-face at the front door. If not, we leave a courtesy notice on the front door asking them to remove that encroachment within 7 days. We return in 7 days. If it's still there, we'll issue notice violation. And at that point, again, a broad range of options, perhaps provide an extension to the homeowner if they're having trouble, or they got to schedule that work with a contractor. If it's not a complete obstruction of the sidewalk, it's not presenting a serious threat to the public safety, then we can work with the resident on some time. But there are those cases where we don't have a lot of time because perhaps the sidewalk's completely obstructed, or that hazard presents a significant public safety hazard. So based on those situations, we may give additional time, or we may move to an administrative citation or a court summons. Speaking of abatements, there was one abatement last year, and that was not for an encroachment, it was for weeds. Again, we focus on education and voluntary compliance. Next slide. Here we go. And last year we had 250 encroachment violations. We received 100% compliance. There was no court summonses, no abatements. And I don't see any reason why that wouldn't continue. We are very successful at what we do. I'm proud of my team, and we're able to get these resolved usually pretty quickly, voluntarily, and we haven't had to use a court summons or abatement. The proposed amendment extends current compliance period from 48 hours to 7 days before an abatement can be conducted. As we reviewed this ordinance and we were making these changes, we had the discussion of, is 48 hours long enough? And there was discussion about, well, can we get proper notice to that person through the mail? We looked at our surveyed jurisdictions and landed on 7 days as being a fair, actually generous time compared to some of our neighboring jurisdictions before an abatement can be conducted. And again, this is consistent with our current weed and rubbish abatement. If you, in chapter 808, I believe it is, when we're talking about weeds and rubbish, the city currently has the authority to abate those violations after 7 days or after 3 days if there's been a violation at that property for weeds in the previous 18 months. So right now, after 3 days, we're talking about weeds in somebody's front yard, the city has the authority to abate that. In this case, we're talking about public safety hazards with our sidewalks and public streets. It would be 7 days. Next slide. So again, just in summary, updates provide clarity and consistency, again, supports public safety and efficient maintenance for our public works crews. It aligns with regional standards and provides clear expectations to residents and property owners. And I believe that is it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We'll now proceed with public comments. If anyone would like to be heard on this item, please make your way to the podium. State your name and neighborhood for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Hi, this is Kim Tuisini-Pansai from The Outlook. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, and staff. I just have one really quick question. You know, in terms of the obstructions removal, I have no problem with that. I bike, and I often bike on the sidewalks rather than the streets, and it is annoying when on a bike you encounter low-hanging trees and you basically have to duck below the handlebars to get under. My question is in regard to weeds. You know, with the obvious change in climate and the drought conditions, a lot of us, myself included, are moving towards xeriscape and natural native vegetation. And so we no longer have grass in our yard. You know, we now have hopefully by next spring, a beautiful collection of native grasses and plants. And I'm just curious, what is the definition of weeds? And is that in conflict with people trying to xeriscape and go with more native vegetation?
Fair question. Thank you. Would you like to address that, Mr. Murray?
Sure. Weeds are not under encroachment. That would be under our weed ordinance, but the ordinance that addresses weeds and grass that has grown over 12 inches in height and things like that, it does exempt native grasses. So when we're talking about residents planting native grasses and things, those are exempt. They can grow as tall as they want them to go. Specific to encroachment, sometimes we have seen where flower beds and native grasses have been allowed to grow, 2-3 feet tall, and then towards the winter they start laying over into the public sidewalk and start decomposing and create hazards that way. So for those residents that do have that tall vegetation along the sidewalk, we ask that they keep that trimmed back to the edge of the sidewalk and not encroach on the sidewalk, but other than that, it can grow over that 12-inch height limit.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? No? Okay. Well, then we'll go to council questions next. I see Councilmember Ward has his hand up. You go first.
Thank you, Mayor. My first question is related to how does this ordinance apply to government entities, including both the city and county of Broomfield, maybe the state of Colorado, or even I'll say the federal government, since we do have the archives building up in the northeast corner.
As far as to trees and property owned by those entities?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. I do know our public works staff maintains our trees and shrubs to these standards. As far as Department of Transportation, other state of Colorado departments, I couldn't speak to their specific standards. But I know of no problems or issues we have had with vegetation on their properties extending into our right-of-ways.
Okay. My question, though, is if, let's say, a property owned by city and county of Broomfield, state of Colorado, federal government, whatever, does have an issue where there's encroachment either on the public right-of-way of a street or a sidewalk, does this ordinance allow us to at least try and address it with those property owners, or because of kind of how governments work, they're more or less exempt from this requirement?
We have very successful partnerships with certainly our state offices locally, like with the one that comes to mind is the Department of Transportation. We have reached out to them a number of times to address issues from encampments to encroachments and other things, weeds, and they're generally pretty responsive, especially along the Highway 287 corridor. So Typically, like we would handle any other situation with a resident, we would call them up, tell them there's a concern there, and ask that they follow up, and usually it's addressed pretty quickly.
Councilmember Ward, it's Nancy. If I could add, they are not exempt from our code enforcement ordinances as property owners. I mean, it would be probably an extreme situation, as Manager Murray mentioned, if we were to ticket another governmental entity, and that's why those relationships are so important. But I just do want to put on the record, they're not exempt from our ordinance.
Thank you so much for that. My next question goes to the kind of issue of time frame for abatement measures taken. I know you mentioned in your presentation that unless there is kind of a full obstruction of the right-of-way, this 48 hours and potentially 7 hours, if this is what, or 7 days, sorry, 48 hours to 7 days, if I believe it was Councilmember Lim's amendment, or Mayor Pro Tem Lim's amendment goes through. I guess my only concern with that, and I guess my question is, when your staff looked at this kind of ordinance, did we take into account there are certain individuals who may not have the ability to easily go around an obstruction on, let's say, a sidewalk? So I'm thinking those who use a mobility device, whether that be a scooter or a wheelchair, or those who have a visual impairment may not necessarily see certain fixed objects that are obstructing their view, and it might just be a partial obstruction, but it's still nonetheless one that's a safety concern for them. How did your staff address that issue with this ordinance?
Well, in that particular case, we also have an ordinance of obstructing passage. So if there was a complete obstruction, we do have tools and resources. If it's just my staff out there removing the obstruction immediately. But as far as this ordinance goes, again, just looking back over historically, the type of encroachments that we generally deal with, 7 days was a more appropriate time frame. Because they vary widely from those complete obstructions to minor obstructions. So it's difficult to put a specific date to cover all of those, and the 7 days seem to kind of be the in-between of those extremes.
Okay. My question, though, is that what is the cutoff point for determining whether something becomes a safety issue or is so much of an obstruction that it's a problem for certain individuals who are not able-bodied people?
Sure. We often use this ADA standard of a 32-inch, or I believe it's a 36-inch width. If it's obstructed beyond 36 inches, or the obstruction causes a width that's less than 36 inches that can be safely passed, that does elevate kind of our response to that.
Okay, and what does that elevated response look like? Does that just mean immediate abatement and we tell the property owner you're going to have to kind of repay that, or what does that look like?
Well, it wouldn't be an immediate abatement because we don't have that authority. It would be currently it would be an abatement after 48 hours. Fortunately, it hasn't come to that. We've been successful in obtaining compliance quickly from residents when we've had those situations. But in a case where the sidewalk is significantly obstructed and it's narrower than that 36-inch ADA allowance, we could currently abate that after 48 hours. But we just haven't had that situation come up.
Okay, and then kind of following up on that, for a height abatement, so let's say a tree limb kind of is dangling kind of in the walking path of someone who, let's say, has a visual impairment, what is the ADA guideline for that? Or do we have an equivalent ADA guideline?
I do not know what the ADA guideline for that is we use this kind of a commonly accepted standard of 8 feet clearance. Now,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Those were my questions.
All right, thank you very much. Next is Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. And Councilmember Ward did a great job of asking about the ADA issues I was curious about as well. I did just want to ask, some of us were trying to figure in our brain the idea of notice and the idea of mailing it in the 7 days, and Postal Service seems to be getting slower and slower. But is it my understanding it doesn't state this here, but your first notice is a sticker or some paper notification on the property? So the 7 days notice is typically after some physical notification on the property, not mail, correct?
Correct. And we do not perform abatements without supervisor approval. And in all of the abatements that we have done since I joined Broomfield in 2019, we have made a physical posting on that property long before the abatement was performed, and that would continue. So a physical posting on that property or physically handing it to the resident.
I think it says in the text, I think, or this or that or this, but in reality, it's a physical notice or a personal notification. Mail might come in later if you're having difficulty reaching them or something like that. Because I think our concern is somebody getting surprised, receiving the letter with either no notice to avoid a penalty or it's already taken place by the time they get the notice in the mail.
My concern too, for sure. We do not want to just show up and surprise somebody with an abatement. There are costs associated with that. The budget we have for abatements is $3,000. If we were kind of pulling the trigger on these abatements on day 8, going around town, we would burn through that budget pretty darn quickly. So we got to be very careful on what we abate, and absolutely, our goal is to get that voluntary compliance rather than spend tax dollars for that abatement. So we're going to make that personal contact.
Language that says or this or that is just to give you flexibility.
Correct.
Okay. Yep. And I had one last question. It may just only apply to me because I feel really dense because I've asked this before and I just don't get it. So maybe you can help me. On Section D, the violation penalty, my understanding, if I have an issue, a tree's hanging low, and you notice me and I don't do anything about it, and you come out, you take care of it, and you bill me, right, with a 15% surcharge or whatever it was, right? What's the violation? Because it sets a violation for each and every day.
Okay. So you have an encroachment, we come out and abate that violation, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we would back up. If we came out, let's say 2 weeks before, and notified you of that abatement, or I'm sorry, that violation, and gave you that 7 days, basically what this Section D would allow would be a new violation each and every one of those 7 days leading up to that abatement. So from the date we first observed it to the date of it was resolved, whether you went out there and cut it or we abated it. I mean, but this is pretty much true with most municipal code violations, whether it's weeds or anything. It can be a new violation every 24 hours or every day that the violation is continuing. So it's a...
Well, if you give me 7 days, I haven't cut my branch or whatever, you come out on day 8, take care of it, correct?
Right. And
you're going to charge me $250 for your troubles or whatever it costs to do that. That's not the end of the matter?
That would be the end of the matter.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what I'm not understanding is $250 for the first violation, no more than $500 for a second violation, no more than $750 for a subsequent violation. If you took care of my violating branch and abated it, there's another $250 for me not doing it? is that the violation?
I'm going to have.
Thank you. I just don't understand where that fine comes in.
Sure. Hi, Courtney Tiemann. I'm with the attorney's office, and I'm the attorney that I do a lot of our prosecution, and so I kind of see it when somebody ends up in court and receives that ticket. And I just think there are multiple tools that we have to help gain compliance. And so abatement is necessary when somebody won't take care of the problem. And somebody was, was kind of zooming in on and there might be there might be a safety concern, right? Sometimes we need to step in and we need to take care of it. And then sometimes we can wait and we hope somebody takes care of it on their own. And when they don't, we have this tool to write a summons. And they can either, depending on where we go right now, we have the administrative citation, right? But we can have this penalty, this fine penalty, which is, well, it's a deterrent for future behavior, right? You may have to pay to have it abated. You may have to pay a fine. And then the next time, whatever it is growing into the encroachment, sometimes they're blocking, stop signs, et cetera. That's going to be a deterrent for future behavior. Does that?
Well, if you clean up my branch and you charge me $250,
sure,
whatever the abatement fee is,
mm-hmm.
It sounds like then there is a $250 fine for the first violation, in addition to what you charged me for the abatement.
Sure, because it's two separate pieces.
So there's both. I get a violation and I get the charge for the abatement.
You can. So you can. Those are two tools that the city has. But it doesn't mean, so law enforcement has discretion, right? And they have discretion to use an abatement tool or to write a summons or to do both. And so there might be scenarios where they do give a summons or a ticket, right? An administrative citation as well as abate it. I mean, they serve two different purposes, right? The abatement is, let's get this taken care of. The fine is, we've set up these laws because these are our expectations and you've violated them. And so here is your punitive sanction for that.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify, there isn't if you have to come out and abate it and do it for me, there's also a fine.
Well, there could be.
And if you come out again, there's a second fine.
Yes.
For a second incident within, there's no period of time. But in other words, it isn't just the abatement, there's also a penalty. That wasn't clear to me that there's a fine in addition to us abating and charging you what it cost.
Sure, because yes. Okay. And again, law enforcement has discretion about that, but yes, you can receive both the fine, the ticket, as well as if we have to abate it, then you have to pay for that.
So if I force you to come out and clean up my branch, I'm also going to get a summons to municipal court.
You could. That's a possible tool that the city has.
Discretion whether I get a summons?
That's right.
Based on.
Oh, there's a whole number of things when we think about the purpose behind, receiving a ticket and receiving a summons. Officers have discretion on many things. Just like then if you didn't receive a ticket and you end up coming into municipal court as the prosecutor, I have discretion on how to proceed. And then if there's a conviction, right, the judge has discretion on sentencing. They take into consideration what.
It's possible you could abate it and I don't get summoned.
Yes.
Because I was nice or I smiled or.
Well, think about an elderly person that might not have the time, resources, money to do it, right? And I have been, not to interject, but I've been contacted by residents that use wheelchairs, that when these encroachments happen, they can't use the sidewalk.
Right.
Right? So there is that equity piece.
I get that, but I guess the discretion of having a penalty on top of the abatement fee doesn't seem clear when we apply that.
Well, okay, so I guess one of the things is, I'm not sure if anybody, right, has experienced this, but I imagine you have. There are going to be properties where it's a repeated issue, right? Like law enforcement is coming out repeatedly. There's branches, there's a number of things, and so they can consider that in their discretion.
So, if say I'm not able-bodied and you have a branch, I can't fix it myself, I let the city take care of it, you can decide whether there's a penalty applied. The violation is at the whim of, the court can decide whether I owe a violation to. I mean, I can get a summons, I can say, hey, I am not able-bodied, I can't cut the branch myself, please don't fine me, and that's adjudicated. But if I'm able-bodied, you might decide, oh, you could have done that, I'm gonna charge you $250 and summons you to court.
So, yes, that's an example of something that could happen. And along the way, the professionals that are working with people in the community have that discretion and have the ability to consider things. I mean, earlier when we were talking about the RV ordinance, and you're talking about people who don't have a home to live in versus somebody who's parking their RV in front of their home. That's certainly something, right, that people can consider along the way. As professionals, we certainly have discretion to try and figure out what makes the most sense.
I get the second and third charge if somebody's continually having problems. I'm troubling over the first one of, well, we'll make this decision, this person isn't able-bodied, so they couldn't do it, so we won't charge them a fine, but this guy's able-bodied, he should have taken care of it, we'll charge you a fine.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. You're struggling with the discretion, but that's across the board.
Is it any different that maybe you got stopped by a law enforcement officer for speeding and they let you off with a warning?
Depends on what the patterns might, who gets that.
Okay, are we going to belabor this?
I won't belabor this. My point is I'm struggling with the discretion. But yeah, I understand there's discretion in law enforcement all the time. Not to rat out my daughter. Once she got pulled over, she cried so much they let him off. I would have done the same thing. It's like, can't deal with this, gave her a warning. If it was me, that probably would have gotten fined. Wouldn't matter how much I cried. I understand there's discretion. I guess I'm just having trouble with this, that it's not spelled out who gets a fine and who doesn't, and that can be abused in the worst case situation, but I appreciate your explanation. Thank you.
All right,
The mayor
thank
wants
you.
to move on.
Okay, Councilmember Brown.
Thank you. Hopefully this is a straightforward question because it's kind of from a historical perspective. So I'm thinking of kind of the most extreme situation here. Like a couple years ago, we had a horrible winter storm and there were branches everywhere. I know my neighborhood was like a hot mess for maybe weeks while folks were, going through this process of trimming up their branches. Can you talk a little bit about how code enforcement handles a massive event like that in the community in terms of like giving people maybe time to deal with this, but also balancing the safety of our community?
Again, and that's the importance in having flexibility in our code, right? And speaking about discretion, in that situation, absolutely, we would be able to work with folks. I would imagine it would be difficult to get contractors out to do a lot of the work. I know my staff has hauled limbs to our facility for residents who didn't have a car because we have pickups. We could throw it in the back. And so, we would work with folks in those situations. Let me use another example. We got spring cleanup around the corner. People start kind of piling their stuff up around their house, and so we all see that every year. And we give, even though our code is very explicit that you can't have that stuff piling up around your house, we start giving a little bit of flexibility to our residents during that lead up to the spring cleanup. So we have that discretion, we have that flexibility, and that's just inherent in how we operate with 99% of our cases is work with folks where we can and when we can.
Appreciate you going into that detail.
Thank you, Mayor. This is probably my last comment of the rest of my city council career, so I appreciate. I just want to ask, with neighbors. So first and foremost, are the folks who HOAs, neighbors, can they basically, I guess, file complaints? And I feel like there could be disputes between, local homeowners versus HOEs. Is that a concern for compliance officers who come in and review for encroachments?
Are you speaking about like encroachments between two private properties?
Exactly,
Like
yes.
a tree limb hanging over a property line?
Yes.
That is That is civil. We do not get involved in those.
Excellent.
I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of tree limbs hanging over property lines. We're just speaking directly about those that cross into the public right of way.
So only public land, not privacy, not HOAs, not,
If it's between two private properties, no. Only when those limbs extend from private property into the public right of way, yeah.
Excellent. That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to say I appreciate all the answers to the original questions because I completely missed the part where this whole process plays out. I thought that the first step in the violation was like you got this notice in the mail. So that was super helpful. So that takes away, I think that takes away the amendments. We can determine this during this discussion. But I do have, I'm caught up in the same part that Councilmember Cohen is caught up in under that 1280 30D. With that violation penalty with the separate days. And just, can you just like clarify one last time? Like there shall be a separate violation for each and every day or portion thereof during which any violation of this section is committed, continued, or permitted. But that's not during that 7 days. And is the max 250 for that one violation without just one thing, you haven't fixed it, not another incident of it. But is that max 250, or could it be the 250 plus the 500 plus the 750 each and every day? You're saying 250 total for the first violation.
250 is the penalty for the first violation if a court summons is issued.
Oh, okay.
Right? This is also subject to our civil penalty, which would be $100 fine. Just to confuse things a little more, because we have the administrative citation that is applicable to a number of our codes that was passed last year, that gives code enforcement officers primarily the ability to write an administrative citation to it's a civil penalty. It allows for the resident to take care of their penalty much easier than having to appear in court. It does not result in a criminal record like a court summons could, and it's easier for our staff to process those because there's not court time and things like that involved generally. So in this situation, a code enforcement officer, if it came to taking that level of enforcement, they could choose to write an administrative citation, which would be $100 fine or a court summons. If they just pay that fine on the administrative penalty, it would be $100. If they go to court and then they're found guilty, it would be a $250 fine.
Okay, so this isn't starting with that mailed notice. This is the court summons. Okay,
that'd be down the road after the fact, after numerous attempts to contact somebody.
Okay, so that's further down. Okay, that's super helpful, and that is my only question. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember McKenzie.
One last question. What's tripping me up is during which any violation of this section is continued. So if I have one violation, and let's say I'm out of the country, you've emailed, put it on the door, et cetera, we go down the summons route, and I don't come back to the country, I'm totally offline for 3 weeks, and instead of coming on day 8 for the abatement, you come on day 21. Is there any accrual?
Accrual of
because it says 250 for the first violation, but each and every day that I am in violation and that violation is continued, day 8, 9, 10, up until 21, I'm in violation, right?
Sure.
Take your time. Yeah.
I'm just pulling up our code because this, and I think Mr. Murray discussed this, somebody mentioned it at the beginning, which is in the general provisions, when you look at our code chapter, we're in the general provisions, that's most offenses, right? That each and every day the offense occurs, it can be a new violation, and it can be charged as such. I can tell you that I've been the main prosecutor in the Broomfield Municipal Court since 2018, and I can't think of one time where we've charged per day that the violation happens. That's just not the way that we typically handle things. But if what our law says is that your branch can't be hanging low over the road, it says it because in large part that's a safety concern. So if it's not corrected, that can be a violation every day it's not corrected. The violation continues, and it's not just one time. It can be charged. You've got it right. It can be charged for day 2 as a new violation, for day 3 as a new violation, for day 4 as a new violation. That is how it's written. Procedurally and like in reality, is that how we do it? No. But it's a possibility, and it's there as one of those tools to say, you're breaking the law again today, and you're breaking the law again tomorrow, and you're breaking the law again on Wednesday, whatever it is. Does that help explain it?
It does help, and
Okay.
I think you seem like a great person. And I understand it's not what I'm picking up is the ethos of Broomfield, but we're dealing with the law, and we're allowing it as a possibility. And even if the intent of the person, if they had no notice for 3 weeks, they were gone on vacation, and if they were there and they got the first one on the door, they would take care of it right away. We are allowing for the possibility of a $5,000, like if it was 3 weeks, right? In my extreme example.
So that's right, and that's where council has to think about what are our expectations for property owners, and how do we want to hold safety, right, in our code. And I guess my thought is, and I may be stepping over the line, I don't know, but I'm just curious, right? If there is a safety hazard on the property next to you, and they may be gone for 3 weeks, it's still their property, right? It's still their responsibility to comply with the code. And so this does allow for that accountability each day. And all I can say is, right, I don't think that's what we'll do, but I understand what you're saying. It's the law, so the next prosecutor or the next officer could come in and do that, and that is accurate, yeah.
Yes, and I will tell you, and I imagine Manager Hoffman would agree, as the leaders of those 2 offices that are dealing with this, that is not how we do things in Broomfield. And our direction to our officers, my direction to our attorneys, is that if we're looking at an everyday violation, whether it's running a sexually oriented business, whether it's noise, whether it's this type of violation, we're going to be very careful when we use that tool. I have not seen it in my 5 years at Broomfield. Courtney, you said you hadn't seen it here. I will tell you, in my previous city, when I did help code enforcement, we did utilize this. It was oftentimes for businesses that were flagrantly violating some of these safety hazard issues, where you have a business that has large trees on their property and they didn't want to spend the money on landscaping, and they're like, fine, give me a $300 violation. It becomes much more compelling for that business to say, I'm going to give you a $5,000 violation because it's been going on so long. So there is a little bit of trust that I guess we're asking from council in this regard, because Mr. Murray and Ms. Tiemann have talked about the processes and the procedures that take place practically. Councilmember McKenzie, you have a good point. The black letter of the law is written for that strongest tool we have available, and we're telling you that yes, it's in there. It's used rarely, if ever, by our current experience.
All right. I have a question before we go to second round. If this scenario did play out, and someone was out of pocket for 3 weeks, and they got this notice and this fine, is there an appeal process?
Yes, under the administrative citation, there is an appeal process.
Okay, so they could come explain their situation and hope for leniency.
Right, and then I'll just say as well, right, and if they're summoned into court, I mean, they're talking to a human, right? And the goal of our municipal court and of our process is to gain compliance when it comes with code, right? So if they are convicted, like at a trial or something like that, there's appeals for that too.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Councilmember Anderson, second round, 2 minutes.
Yeah, and I just have one additional follow-up question to that. So this whole out of the country scenario, and I understand that what you're saying, like, this is your property and you are responsible for it. If something is terribly wrong, you are responsible. So if you had such a situation, you got the notice because you got an email notice or whatever, and could you just say, I want to stop the bleeding, can you just go abate this for me? Is that an option where you just say, can the city please just go take care of it, I understand what's going on, and I'll pay for it, and then but stop the violations? Is that is that an option?
No, that, as you frame it, no, that would not be an option. They would not just say, no, you go ahead and do it for me. Our contractors we discourage that. We encourage them to get their own contractor, go out there and do it, because they're probably going to save themselves money rather than going through the city abatement system. It's just more feasible for them to do that on their own.
Okay, so you would just need a contract with, I mean, you could do
Yeah,
that.
a contractor themselves.
Okay, and I appreciate this, and I understand that this is super helpful, and I do support this. It's
Sure.
helpful to walk through the all these possibilities. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, and our code enforcement aren't landscapers. Councilmember Cohen.
Just to clarify that point, maybe I'm misunderstanding something. You give me 7 days' notice. There's a tree hanging over the branch. It's dangerous. You're not going to let it sit there for another week till I come home, to use Councilmember McKenzie's example. You're going to take it down because it's dangerous, right?
It would be situational, but hypothetically, a branch hanging, dangling over the public sidewalk, yeah, we would probably not let that stay very long, especially if we were having difficulty getting a hold of the property owner.
Well, you're giving me notice. You're giving me 7 days to take care of it. I'm not there, I don't do it, and it's dangerous, or it's encroaching, you're going to take care of it and bill me, correct?
Correct.
So, but the idea is that's not the end of it, that me paying the fine or the cost of the abatement doesn't end it. There's also going to be a penalty. But the day-by-day thing is, it's so, my problem with this is just so vague, and I appreciate you saying, well, we never do it this way. But just look at the federal government, different people do things different ways. And I don't know, if I'm going by the letter of the law, we could assign certain people big fines because we don't like them, or whatever the case may be. And my question is, it feels like it could be a little more clear of what we're permitting you to do and how much discretion we're giving you in what circumstances, without, someone who has a vendetta or just likes is a by the law person and adds up penalty after penalty, day after day.
I would go back to the weeds ordinance. We have the same discretion under the weeds. We give notice, go back in 8 days, and the weeds haven't been cut. We have the authority to abate at that time and also issue a court summons. I can't recall a time where we have done that. We realize that's kind of punishing them twice. They're getting the abatement fee, which can be pretty steep when you're talking about cutting weeds down and things like that, and a fine. We have generally just chosen one route or the other, recognizing that our goal is to get compliance, not to punish. But it is, as Courtney said, it is a tool in our toolbox for those properties that are extreme hazards or non-compliant repeatedly, or we're getting no response from the property owner for one reason or other. And we have that leverage and tools to bring those properties into compliance and even discourage future violations. But with the weeds, we have that same choice now, but we rarely will do both for one situation.
Thank you. My problem is not being able to, it's taken us this long just to explain it. I can't imagine explaining it to a constituent, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? All right, then we'll move on. Next is council's consideration of proposed ordinance number 2283. Will the clerk please read the proposed ordinance by title?
Ordinance number 2283, amending chapter 12-08, encroachments.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance on first reading and order published in full? Councilmember Nguyen.
I make this motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Delgadillo.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move forward to the vote on ordinance number 2283. Council, please cast your vote electronically. Councilmember Ward, please state your vote verbally.
Yes.
Thank you. All council members have entered their vote, and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes 8-2. Thank you all very much for that debate. There are no mayor or council member requests for future action this evening. I do want to circle back on the date for the Ward 1 vacancy candidate forum. After speaking with Councilmember Ward, he said it would be fine if we went forward with February 18th, that is a Wednesday evening, virtually, 6 to 8 p.m., could be shorter, depending on how many candidates. Is that agreeable to council? Any objections, any flags? We're good? You got that, like Kenny? Make sure you show up. All right, well, thank you all so much. Is there any other business to come before the council from my colleagues or staff? You have direction on that, Manager Hoffman? All right, we'll get that moving. Well, there being no further business, the business meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.